There. So, back from the Rebel Capitalist live event. It was a really fun time. Met some really fun people, met some really interesting people, listened to some really awesome speakers. Of course, the regular team was there, plus some new guys I had never seen before, and got some pretty good information from a lot of them. It's really hard to like retain a lot of this stuff, and really like being there, you have to take notes and you have to really understand a lot of what they are already talking about in order to retain a lot of the information. And it was like quite an overwhelming weekend, and I'm sitting here just trying to remember all the stuff that Jeff Snyder had said, and all the times that you know the other speakers, Joseph Wang or whoever was up there. It's just like, man, there is so much going on there. So like, if I was to give any advice to anybody who goes to a conference, is to take notes, take a lot of them, because that's one thing I really took away from it. Is like, man, it is like a flood of information that comes in, and it's so good. um I would have to say it again. Mark Moss knocked it out of the park. He does the best job with his presentation. He is the most entertaining, the most engaging, the most thought provoking when it comes to his argument. When the way he presents it, I really have to give it to Mark. He does a great job with it. And then of course, Jason Hartman. I mean, I have to say the argument that he uses, real estate's expensive compared to what, right? And so he starts comparing it to a lot of different things that are out there today. And you can see that, when it comes to like houses compared to gold, or houses compared to, I forget, he had a bunch of different ones up there. And again, this is the reason why you need to take notes, but it's a fun argument that he uses, and it's very, very, very telling, and it's also like, it's hard to push against it. So with that being said, I did a great job up there. I mean, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I was nervous going into it, but I knew I was going to be nervous. So I said, okay, just own the nervousness, get up there. You're going to stutter. Everything's going to be cool. Don't worry about it. You'll get through it. And so that's kind of the feeling that I had. So I got up there and I was going through my thing, did the introduction, started going through the four economic theories. And then I went to my computer to go start to read. And this is funny as hell. And I guess my blood pressure was up or whatever, because I couldn't focus in on the words. Like, I could not read them. And somebody out there in the audience is just like, hey man, you want to borrow my glasses? And I'm like, oh man, what a lifesaver. So I said, you bet. So he hands me the glasses, and cool, now I can read. And I start going into the idea of average inflation rate over time. And really, it's amazing. Like, when you think about 45 minutes of being on stage in front of like 500 people, it's the idea of it is like, it feels like you're going to be up there all day. Like, how is it that you're going to get through? How am I going to speak for 45 minutes? How do I not just bust it out like in 10 minutes and then not know what to say for the rest of the half an hour? But really, when you get up there and you start going into it and you start moving, it's just like, it's fun. Like, you don't even really, like, the crowd just kind of turns into a bigger thing. Like, you can see, you're looking at the faces individually of all these people, and they're listening real intently, and and you can see like the expressions on some of their faces and stuff. But really, overall, there it's kind of like a singular thing happening out there. So it's like you and them, but it's not them. It's like all of us together kind of feeling. It's really weird. It's like the connection that people talk about, right? Same thing when you're listening to. And so I had a lot of people come up, and it was just like, man, thanks for telling the backstory of how you got on, how you were able to make it to the stage here at Rebel Capitalist. And then thanks for the information that you had presented as well. Like, the four economic theories is very helpful to understanding, what it is that's taking place within the economy, and then why it is that some things are not maybe taking place within the economy. And that's where, again, those four economic theories of Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, the bullwhip effect, and Cantillon effect. And by understanding those four economic theories, to like understand them means to like be able to describe them. Like, if you can define what they are and how they kind of operate, then you will have internalized the information, and you'll just recognize it when you see it out there when you're reading articles and going about your even just daily business. But anyway, talk of today. We are 4 minutes into this. I want to make sure and get information out within the first 10 minutes of the video because I know a lot of people don't have time to waste on a big, long live stream kind of 3-hour timeline. So what I really wanted to talk about is inflation running persistently for years. This is not something that is coming to a surprise to me at all. Like, this is something that I was going to anticipate or expect or whatever for a while. Like, I knew they were going to keep them elevated. And as funny as it is to see out there, when I look at the end of last year, when there was the promise of all these interest rates cuts coming in the future, to get articles and information now coming in that has people completely changing the point of view that they had even 6-7 months ago, it just totally again lends to my understandings and beliefs about the credible threat theories. It's just like everything is just again adding up to be in line with everything that I have been thinking and believing as far as monetary policy has gone, right? Like, I don't trust the unemployment numbers. I don't even trust the inflation numbers. I don't trust any of these numbers that are given out there. I don't trust anybody who's even like trying to present these as legitimate numbers. Like, that's not what I'm looking at. What I'm trying to do is focus in on monetary policy's view. Like, this is what they look at, right? So if you're a voting member of the FOMC, you have certain things that you're looking at. You have a particular strategy that you are following in order to achieve monetary policy. Understanding this monetary policy and the view that they are taking is the appropriate view, right? In my opinion, in order to conduct yourself, because that's the way you're going to know where interest rates are going to go and how to invest and, buy houses and cars and go on vacation and all that other stuff. Now, something I found very interesting is that with this inflation running persistently for years and years and this narrative now being pushed out there to the market again, this goes right in line with my belief that they are trying to raise the neutral interest rate and all the other stuff. So if you're new to my channel and this is the first time you've ever watched it, maybe we'll dive a little bit more into the concepts of all this stuff. But what I really wanted to present was yet another argument that I found, and I didn't even realize it. I was on the plane last night and I was digging through my phone through like downloads that I had done and PDF files and stuff, just looking through information that I had gathered up over the years. And I came across this Fed document. I left a link down in the description. I hope it's the right link. And it's to does inflation expectations really matter, right? And this argument, it's 27 pages long or something. This dude dives deep into it. It's Rudd, R-U-D-D, I believe is the guy's name. Excuse me. And he wrote this thing back in 2021. And the arguments inside of this are so good, right? And I'm really enjoying it. It's really kind of complicated because he kind of talks in Fed speak, so you have to kind of read things over and over again to try and understand what it is he's trying to, communicate through it. So it is a really difficult writing article, whatever, this document that he put out. It's a little bit of a difficult one to try and get through, but I'm going to try and like read through it. I mean, I've gone about, I don't know, halfway through it or so. And again, like I said, it was really complicated, but it is really compelling to this argument that inflation expectations does not raise the inflation rate. Like my whole argument this entire time and everything that I had believed that I had been nailing and getting right and all the stuff that I had, predicted and shouldn't have probably predicted, but, anyway, everything seems to line up perfectly. But the key to it was the inflation expectation, because that was part of the credible threat theory. And this dude is busting it apart, right? At least from so far as what I'm reading through this document. So I am so intrigued by what he had to say, and that's why I wanted to give it to you guys here. Link it down in the description, because after I get through this, we're going to do a members only live stream, really breaking down some of the arguments that this guy gives about how inflation expectation doesn't raise the inflation rate. Now, I know everybody else in the whole live stream and everything is going to be like, yeah, okay, bro, you know what it is. It's money printer that does it, right? Okay, got that part. We've been through this a million times. Quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 doesn't raise the inflation that they were looking for. But obviously, you cannot have a bunch of inflation without the money printer. Now, I'm going to take it back to even Jeff Snyder, right, who is looking at the world dominating dollar forces that are now impacting the United States when it comes to the comes to the demand for the dollar. And it is far more than I could ever possibly imagine. Like watching Jeff Snyder, I told my wife when before it started, I said, when Jeff gets up there, I said, even if you focus in really hard on his, like, just listen really intently to everything he says, I'm probably only going to grasp about 25% of it. Like, you really, this is again, like where you want to take down notes when it comes to it, because he really does break it down and goes and shows through this euro dollar how much demand for dollars truly exists outside of the United States. And it's almost scary to think about how impactful this really is on our way of life, because really once I kind of got the understanding of how much demand there really is for it, it now shows me that there is really no way that there is anything that the Federal Reserve can do but to attempt to provide the world with like supply the world with that demand. And how this screws up the rest of the economy is just like, it's just intense to like try to figure out how all these cogs and pieces work together. However, when it comes to monetary policy strategies, it comes all the way down to the inflation expectations and the credible threat that comes from that inflation expectation that I feel is how monetary policy is being conducted. So later, again, I'm not going to really dive into this guy's like inflation expectation doesn't create it or not. That's not the argument I'm going with. What we want to talk about, though, is now the Federal Reserve's view, right? This credible threat theory that is now coming from them, or not the credible threat that is coming from them, my theory, this credible threat that is coming from them about how inflation is going to be running persistently for 2 years more, whatever it takes to get down to their goal, which everybody seems to believe is a 2% target. Now, if you really think about this for just a minute, this almost does line up with the average inflation rate theory, right? The average inflation rate over time. Because in 2 years, if that's when the Federal Reserve finally starts to move on the inflation, starts to move the Fed funds rates on the inflation expectations or the inflation that has been created at that time, and it's in line with their target, which is 2%, and that average inflation over time, which is now probably going to be averaging 2%, right? You see how like this timeline is almost perfect for that kind of theory. So again, I guess if you haven't been following my channel, the average inflation rate over time is that the Federal Reserve was not going for a 2% target. They were going for a 2% average inflation rate over time. And that really means that during times when they were persistently under 2%, like shortly after the Great Financial Crisis, for the 10 years after that, they were persistently under 2%. So for the last few years, they were making up for that lost time. Now, this is a strategy that John Williams was talking about. This is monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world. I left that down in the description. And like, that's the essence to me of like what is truly happening within this economy is like, when I see this, and when I see so many other times that people are out there arguing about like I mean, I have to give it to Mark Moss for his presentation, but he even brought up Gresham's law the same way I did. So I was up before he was up. I was up the day, on Saturday. He went up on Sunday afternoon. So when I was on stage, I talked about Gresham's law and the silver quarter and how, you hardly find any silver quarters out there in circulation. And even if you found a silver quarter, you wouldn't spend that into circulation, right? You take that silver quarter, put it in your pocket and keep it there, or put it out there in the dresser drawer and hold it. You wouldn't spend it. And that's Gresham's law. You got two base metal. You got a base metal, you got a precious metal. So the base metal is going to stay in circulation because nobody really cares about that one, but people like the precious metal, so they're going to pull that one out if you have no other choice but to spend both of them at face value. So might as well keep the better one. And it's funny how Mark brought that same argument up, but he doesn't carry that same argument on to the idea like, how does Bitcoin really like take over, right? I mean, he talked about the good money, bad money chasing out good money, Gresham's law. But how does Bitcoin replace the dollar? It can't, right? It's the good currency. It's the fixer. Like if you hold on to Bitcoin, Bitcoin becomes useful. It becomes the currency that people choose to use. There is not enough of it to go around unless it starts to become a deflationary currency, meaning that everything that you go to sell has to get cheaper and cheaper for there to be transactions for people to do. because the most industrious people are going to be hoarding it all for themselves, right? And that's the problem with Bitcoin. It's not elastic. It's not, and I'm not saying that's the benefit of fiat. Don't confuse the two. The problems that come from Bitcoin, which I'm totally willing to accept, right? I'm totally willing to accept them. The problems that come from it is that you will have booms and busts periods of business cycles that are going to be very devastating to the people as the most industrious people gather the money. Everybody starts to fall in depression because they can't do transactions because these people are holding on to the very thing that they need in order to do the transactions, okay? Without then lending out money, like lending out, here's little forms of paper to do your transactions with, right? Unless they relinquish that back out there to the people again, which is the bust, boom, right? Then you're going to find that the same things are going to happen over and over again. So the Gresham's Law was right in there. And I don't mind calling Mark out on this because Mark was up on stage calling everybody else out who was up there. And it was cool because I was glad he did it because it really goes to show that these guys are not afraid to not necessarily argue, but contradict the arguments that they are using, right? So saying, hey, we got this and we're going to fight against that one, And so anyhow, 16 minutes into this, man, I'm really on a roll. I had a lot of coffee today and I finally got up. So, actually, I've been up for a little while. We went to town today. All right. What are you guys talking about? I got a $10 super chat. Let's go check that out. I think that came from Matthew, didn't it? Yes, it sure did. Hey, Matthew, thank you so much for the $10. Great to see you back. What was the greatest takeaway from the weekend's conference? Scariest thing you heard and best thing you heard? Again, like I really would love to, if you really want to see what the conference was, I believe it goes up on the Rebel Capitalist Pro website. So I think that's the only place it actually ends up being, where is the only place you can see it. But my biggest takeaway, because the speakers talked about so many different places, right? Some of them were into real estate, some of them were into world government stuff. It was a whole bunch of different type of information. But for me, I think the biggest thing is probably the uncertainty that everybody has within it. I guess that's everybody's concern all the time is everybody's always uncertain of the future. But I think that's probably the biggest one because there's a lot of talk of the government failing us, kind of stuff. And to me, that really is, to me, I don't think about the government failing us. I think about the government failing, right? They're the government's failing. If there's revolution, if there's mass chaos happening, if there's a collapse within, the economy, that's not the government necessarily causing it. The government causes it in a way that, we allow it to happen, and it's always different forms from the different, technologies and shit that, create the world that we live in today. But really, when I think about what it is that, happens here within our societies and within the economy and with everything that is going on, the uncertainty that people carry the entire time within what's going on, I think is probably what overwhelms everybody the most. Mark Moss was talking about building a big old complex, or not complex, just a nice house, I should say. I want it in complex. Building a place down in Mexico because, all the reasons why is he likes to surf, he likes the people, he likes Mexican food, whatever. But he's talking about doing that. Why? So he could bug out. And I don't think about bugging out. I don't think about that. My economy and what I view of the economy doesn't include a lot of stuff that these guys want to include into it. They have some really anxiety ridden stuff, right? It's just it gets to the point where it's just man, if I was to listen to this stuff every single day, I don't think I would eat. I think well, actually I used to listen to that stuff all the time, and that was exactly the problem. I drank a lot of beer. So I don't listen to that kind of stuff. What I follow is monetary policy kind of things. So, but if I was to take it, something a singular thing that was from that whole conference, it would have been the uncertainty that everybody has within not only themselves and what it is that's going on, the audience themselves, they're wondering and looking for the answer of what's happening, and then also like the uncertainty that a lot of them are bringing, like what is coming from our government. Look at these things that they are doing, right? Look at the condition of like what's happening here with the stock market. Um, like there's so many there's so many different ways that you can end up like impacting the decisions that you make with your life because of the information that you have inputted, right? The importance of it, like how much do you import this information into your thoughts and your decision making. And it can, like for me, like by the end of the conference, like it literally some like I get like ill. Like I mean, like I can't sleep. Like my stomach's all messed up, and I usually just blame it on the traveling because I mean, it's just like flying in and out and stuff like that. But it's incredible. Like literally the intensity of the amount of information, and if you're trying to retain it all, it can be quite overwhelming. So, but the awesome part about it is that most of the time the conversations are very, very positive. They are like to the point that there's like there's networking happening, there's business happening, there's new partnerships that you could see getting built for the first time. Communications are opening up. So, and like as if there was anybody out there who networks, it's All Nighter. Like All Nighter knows everybody, and everybody knows All Nighter. Like there's like All Night, like he goes around and has conversations with every single person. There's like nobody in the conference that doesn't know who he is. I swear, all the speakers know who he is. Like it's just, I wouldn't say all the speakers know who he is, but like a bunch of them know. Like it's just, and it's fun to watch the conversations take place. And I think that right there is reason why you even go to these conferences, is because of that gathering that takes place. Like you don't get that necessarily like here on YouTube. You get a pretty good at it. I know All Nighter definitely has made a lot of connections through YouTube, and I know a lot of people do it on Twitter, but it's not the same as when you're at those meetings, where you're actually shaking hands with people and you're trading, business cards. Although that doesn't happen anymore. I hand out business cards every once in a while, but people really don't hand out business cards anymore. It's just like, you do contact information through your cell phone or something, but still, the virtual business card aspect. All right, moving on. Man, it's great to be back. All right. The Lord will show everyone the light eventually, where they like it or not, whether they like it or not. All right. Not in our lifetime, maybe after the Great Awakening. Will things ever go back to the way they were? Nope, never. There is no way they were. They only go in a new direction always, And what is the way they were? Like, I mean, do you want like, I mean, are you thinking like, how far back? Like caveman, or like back to the days where before electricity, or what's the way they were, like Little House on the Prairie kind of stuff? Or I mean, it's just like, do we want to go back to what time? I mean, to the time when a single income could produce all the needs for a household. I mean, there was a whole different time back then. We didn't have a lot of the luxuries we have nowadays. We don't have a lot of the entitlements we have nowadays. I mean, it's just like there would be a whole different world to see. And I'm not saying hey, entitlements are great or something like that. I'm just saying it would be just a completely different world. Screws down here to the bottom. 2015, stable prices and decent home prices to income ratios. Yeah, but it that didn't take away from the issues of not being able to deal with the fact that there was going to be downturns in the economies. Like you can't, people are like, why can't they just keep it stable? Well, it's not going to be stable, because what ends up happening is no matter what, like if you're like, okay, what is the perfect amount of money? We don't know exactly what the perfect amount of money is, because we have no idea how many contracts are being created outside this United States that are going to demand dollars. Like there's no way of knowing that. So there's no way then in the world, like I don't care how much you wish and promise and beg and throw like, all the prayers in the world at the Federal Reserve, they are not going to be able to figure out how much that money is. Right? That they just don't know. They don't know what the level should be. They can only guess by the demand for dollars that is in existence, right? And that fluctuates all the time. So there's no way that they know how to keep this in a stable form. There are times in life and in which people would be like, hey, this is perfect, just maintain it, just do it right here. And it was just like, love to, can't. Watch what happens, right? There's going to be things that change. People become industrious. They start to save. Once you save, then you want to start doing something with that savings. Once you start doing something with the savings, then things start to change within the economy. And it's always changing. It's like expecting there not to be waves and tide and day and night. It's just the way it goes. And it's not necessarily a cyclical thing in the sense that every single piece of the economy and everything that you look at has a perfectly fitting part. I mean, all these things are very organic and to what could happen from technology advances and you know, just the social beliefs of the people. I mean, if you get enough people riled up in a particular belief, they'll go into a room and, believe that comets are going to carry them away to space and they end up ending their lives. And it's just a weird thing that happens. I don't even know why I brought that up, but I just think about like, how it is that people's beliefs can just really like, what it does to them. And, man, I don't know. Why am I going off so much? All right, here we go. Let's talk about neutral interest rates or something. Simon, is Cantillon's essay published in modern English? Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's right here. All right, so you can get the essay. It's in English. There's a link to it down in the description. It's an Amazon affiliate link. So if you follow that Amazon affiliate link, you can buy the essay online. However, you do not need to buy the essay. The essay is for free at the Mises Institute. So you can go to the Mises Institute or just type in Cantillon essay on economic theory. And you should be able to find it within the within the Google searches there. But anyway, you can find the essay for free and you not have to buy it. But if you do happen to follow the affiliate link, anything that you really put in your cart for the next 24 hours, I will also get a commission on. So, you don't have to buy the essay. Just go buy whatever you want. Just follow the link first and then I'll get a little commission off of that. Thanks. That made it an easy plug. All right. I downloaded the PDF for free. Perfect. Good for you, Jamal. All right. We're so cooked. All right. You should make your own YouTube channel. Oh, you're talking to somebody else? All right. Good versus evil. Always has been. Good will win one day. All right. Well, what is good versus evil? I mean, if you figure out the system, if you figured it out, like I forget the guy's name up there, Hughes, and he's some like, I don't know, billionaire or whatever. Oh, no, what was that guy's name? I can't remember. But he was up there and he was just like, I don't know what you're all talking about. The dollar's working fine for me. He's got it figured out. Like the dollar's like working for him. So when it's evil, maybe you look at him as evil because he figured it out. What if I figured it out? Am I evil for figuring it out? That doesn't make any sense, right? So I don't look at it as a good or evil thing, right? It feels evil in intent in the way that it is done, in the sense that the rich are separated from the poor in a dramatic fashion when new money comes in. And if you have an ever increasing amounts of new money, you're going to have an ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor, and the inequality will get worse until there is an inevitable giant collapse, and all that feels very evil. However, it is also natural. So yes, there is chaos and traumatic things. You ever watch a lion kill a little tiny baby gazelle? It's very traumatizing looking, right? I mean, it's like, what the hell just happened here? But it's a natural occurring thing. It's not something you go like, it's just like, oh, well, okay, well, this happens, I mean, it's like, okay, now what do we do about it, right? Because, we don't sit there and go like, how do we prevent this from ever occurring? No, it's just like, okay, yeah, you try to avoid, okay, keep these two separated or whatever, but you're not going to stop it, right? Because this is the naturally occurring things that occur in order for this one to survive. And that one breeds plenty of them to this one to survive on. I mean, it's just the way it goes. And it's sad to look at it like that, but that's the nature of it, right? Now we can take it and say, oh no, we're men. We can, we're human beings who can, look at things in a much different fashion, and then exclude the whole thing that it's a naturally occurring, thing that's happening. It's human nature. It's just the way the economy rolls. And when you find people who can figure that out, and then they manipulate the situation, then yeah, that seems very evil in intent. But the thing is that if you can figure out how it is that they're manipulated, then you can manipulate the situation to manipulate that. right? To take advantage of the manipulation. It's just the way, it's just like, again, if you're the gazelle or are you the one who's getting, the gazelle goes faster. It's just the way you do it. You like bonds? I like bonds. I mean, if you're going to get into bonds, in my opinion, it should be very short-term bonds because they pay the higher interest rate and you can be out by the end of the month, right? So, or in the short term. So that's what I look at as like, mutual or like money market funds kind of stuff. So if you're going to be in bonds or in treasuries and stuff like that, but to buy like a 30-year bond and sit on it, in my opinion, that's like, but I mean, what do I know? I'm not an investor. I don't do stuff like that. I do own bonds, by the way. But they're savings bonds, and I bought them for the family and stuff like that. Okay, the good and evil in the current situation is directly related to the former easy monetary policies and the current tighter monetary policies. It is boom bust thing. Yeah, Captain Happy. That's cool, right? I totally get it. And I understand your point of view, right? And I don't understand, but I don't understand what it is that you are anticipating them to do about it because this is the monetary policy and how it operates. Like there is literally nothing else that they can do about this except for to continue to figure out strategies in order to keep the system rolling because other than that, it's going to be total chaos and misery as the amount of transactions that start occurring around the world diminish dramatically. If you watch transactions around the world diminish dramatically, right? Because everybody else is hoarding on to their dollars in order to pay off the contracts that they owe. What you're going to find is major depressionary influences then hitting the economy. People's jobs will like cease to exist. It's like the manipulation, the monetary policy manipulation game has to continue, right? It has to like, and by the way, let me put this on. I am wearing my "and the Fed" hat to make sure that everybody knows that I am not trying to defend the Fed, right? What I am trying to defend is the idea that the monetary policy is going to try and continue to operate as if things can continue, right? Now, we can look at it and say, like, nah, and it's going to fail. It's okay, might as well get everything into gold. Okay, well, that's cool. Like, I mean, I'm into precious metals. In fact, I have, like, this is how well I argue this stuff, right? Look, I got 2 ounces. No, that's actually 3 ounces right there of silver. Like I got another 2 ounces of silver there hanging off my neck. This thing, right? It's a 50-cent piece, 50 silver $half, right? My ring. This is like, I mean, I'm into silver. I'm into the stuff. But I also understand that if you went back to a precious metal system, if you went back to a gold standard, if you had a Bitcoin standard, if you went anywhere near a fixed currency or a limited supply where you do not have an elastic money supply like the dollar has done, and you have people out there who are trying to attempt to provide the world with the dollar system and then not have inequality take place and then what to do about the inequality, and then now you got to figure out what it is that people are going to do in order to like have a daily life from a daily job that gets ever increasingly more difficult. But those things are not any different from history because those lower wage paying jobs is exactly the same life that everybody has lived at a lower wage paying job since the Romans, right? These things don't change. The booms and busts are going to take place. And it's best to understand what it is that the monetary policy is doing for their strategy in order to figure out where it is that you need to position yourself. Because nobody's going to know what it is that you need. Like 18 years old or 80 years old, are you guys going to do the same thing? Like, I don't think so. Right? I mean, it's a totally different world for you, even though you're in the exact same environment. The information is different for the two of you. And that's why it's important to understand it for yourself. Like, I can't take in all that New World Order stuff. I can't do it anymore. There was a time when I did. I totally recognized why I was just like, when there were like vaccinations, and I'm like, no, thank you. They're like, you have to. They're going to come and make you do it. I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead. I know how this works. I know what my constitutional rights are. I know what volunteering looks like. And I know what, forced volunteering looks like. See, this is like, if everybody had resisted, they would have said, okay, no, never mind, go back to work. If everybody was just like, no, we are protesting. We are not showing up for work. Sorry, everybody. I guarantee you they would have caved. They would have said, never mind, come back. But no, everybody was like, okay, I'll show up. And I'm like, all right, man. I mean, I don't mean to give anybody a hard time for doing it, man. If you were scared and you thought that that thing was going to work, go for it. But everybody I know who got the, not everybody, but a fair majority of the people I know who got vaccinated also got sick, and they got sick multiple times. Right? I got it. I got it one time. I mean, it was, yeah, I didn't feel good. I didn't really, I mean, it was like a really bad cold, and I lost my sense of smell and taste, and that was really upsetting. Like, out of the whole thing, that was the worst. In fact, I made videos all through it. I mean, I didn't tell anybody I had COVID. I just made videos every day while I had COVID. You know, I didn't, like, it didn't stop me from doing anything except for showing up for work or whatever, you know. But I did the whole thing. I quarantined because, you know, I'll do the appropriate thing. Besides, I don't mind being at home, you know. It didn't feel good anyway, so what was I gonna do, you know? So I sat at home and I didn't think anything about it. Like, there was only one thing that really upset me and that wasn't allowed into my life because of the vaccination. Just one, and I don't really want to talk about it, but it was just one, and it was a bummer to me, but it wasn't the end of the world. It was a very small little like thing, and that wasn't little, it was big for me. But anyway, all I guess I'm getting at is like, you know, my regular business, the way I conducted myself, I went to the grocery store. You know, when I'm on private property, I will conduct myself if I want to be on your private property, however it is that you want me to do it, if I want to be on your property. And if you want me to wear a mask while I'm on your property, as much as I do not like it, I want to go into the grocery store and get some food, right? And it's not my right to tell somebody else what they are supposed to do on their property and how it is that they want people to conduct themselves on their property. That is their right. I am a constitutionalist. I am cool with that. I didn't like it because they did it because of these other people's stupid mandates, but whatever. I mean, if that's the decision they make, that's their right. And I'm totally cool with that. I didn't like, as soon as I walked out the door, boing, yeah, off it came. I mean, it was just like, I'm not going to wear it out on the street, and I'm not going to wear it in my car, and I'm not going to wear it at home. You know? And that was just like, that's all there was to that. But as far as like, you know, I mean, as far as wearing it on private property, if that's what was expected of the people who were on that property, then, you know, then that's the way I would behave. Like when I went to Houston, I was wearing the mask when I showed up in Houston just because I was so used to wearing it everywhere while I was in a building, because that's just, you know, the way it was where I was from, because I'm in Oregon, right? And then I quickly realized it was like, oh, I don't have to be wearing this thing, right? And so I didn't wear what I didn't need to. And so for like through the conference and stuff like that. But it is like it was mental conditioning, right? But that's the way everybody was. Like you couldn't walk into a building without it, and it was just like, okay, you know. But when you walk into my building, you know, as far as I was concerned, you know, as when you walked into my house, you know, and it sucked, right? But I mean, it's just like it's hard to look at things from a constitutional aspect of it. The government didn't have the constitutional right to force that mandate down on the stores, but those stores weren't forced to be taking the mandate either. Like every one of them could have said, no, we're not going to do it. Never mind. You're not going to get any tax revenues. You're not going to get anything out of us because we're not following your mandate. No, you know, and they would have caved, you know. They would have been, no, I'm sorry, you can't come in. They're saying, no, we can't have a business license or operate or anything else because we're forcing these mandates, so we're going to close our doors until the mandates are over. Right? They would have ended the mandates. It would have ended right there. Right? But no, people don't resist. They just like, okay, let's do it. Right? And you know, I couldn't, you know, it was just like, hey, I'm not gonna, like, I mean, I was part of the game too. You know, my boss, I wanted to earn a living. Right? My boss, he didn't want to resist. I was like, hey man, let's resist. He was like, no, go get a vaccine. I'm like, never mind, bro. Give me the mask. You know, give me the stupid thing. Oh, once I no longer saw that people were dying in the streets, I started questioning things. I knew from the very beginning. That it was, you know, I didn't trust it. I mean, I believed that the sickness was real. I mean, because I got sick. Yeah, I mean, it was just like I got sick. I mean, I definitely lost my sense of smell and taste, and it was terrible. That was the worst part of it. But as far as like, you know, I mean, the whole family got it. Freddie got it. He bounced off the walls. You know, he bounced off the walls like nothing was wrong. He was like, do we really have to stay inside? I'm like, no, but yeah. So, anyhow, just seeing it, because if they didn't have that particular situation, they would not have had the unusual and exigent circumstances in order to do the monetary policies, right? Because really it was all because of the low neutral interest rate. The monetary policy had come to an end. Like, I don't know how like, to me, they must have been in, like, if I was the Federal Reserve, if I was the FOMC, if I was any member of the FOMC, I guess I probably not, because their strategy was just like, no, go ahead, let the failure begin. We're gonna deal with it. But when I look at like how close to the edge that monetary policy really skirts, it is incredible. You think about it, like back in the day, like you could probably almost put this down into steps. This could almost be like a course, right? But like back in the day, the Federal Reserve conducted their monetary policy almost in secrecy. Like you didn't even know monetary policy was going to change. You didn't. In fact, you just woke up one day and looked at the news and Fed funds rate had moved. And everybody's like, holy crap, Fed funds rate moved. They used the shock and awe event of policy adjustment to move monetary policy. In fact, they thought it was the key component to monetary policy, was that literal shock and awe event, to keep it in secrecy, to make sure that nobody understands what it is that they are doing, so that when those rate moves happen, nobody had predicted it and it will start to move the market. So they would have like a dial, like a control that they could use. But it would have to be that shocking event that would then click the dial, right? But if everybody had predicted it, the dial would have already been moved. And they knew this, so they kept it very quiet, right? That was until they realized, shit, if we actually give a little bit of notice or kind of an idea of what it is that we're doing, we can actually get the dial to move ahead of time and move it in a more impactful way. So, hey, maybe we can communicate a little bit more to the audience here and see if we can't get this Fed funds rate to be a little bit more powerful tool with the forward guidance aspect to it, right? So it went from secrecy to like, maybe we'll like, whisper out a little bit of stuff. Well, then it kind of steps into like, well, wait a minute here. Now that we've got this idea that it works, how is it that we can now communicate it with a different fashion? Maybe there's some tools that we can start to design and build and use inside of the forward projections of where it is that we anticipate the economy to go. We'll do press conferences. We'll start building up this way of communicating to the people out there how it is that the Fed funds rate is going to be moving in order to be even more impactful. In fact, we'll get it to the point we don't even really have to do anything with the Fed funds rates. We can just talk about doing things with the Fed funds rate. You see how it went through the step? Like it took years and years and years and years for this to happen. All the way from the times of Volcker even, that it did this. And if you read through their stuff, like we do, then you would actually see these things taking place. Did I get a super chat back there? Let's go check that out. What the hell is it? Oh my gosh, look at all these comments. Well, I don't see it. Sorry, bud. Wow. Oh, no, there it is. Man, there's a lot of comments. Okay, angry capitalist. Our economy is just an advanced ecology. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's the thing. Like, if you understand it, if you understand the nature of it, if you understand how things just kind of generally operate, and that's what's important about those four economic theories, is they really give you a better understanding of where not only we are inside of our position against the BRICS nations issuing a gold currency, understanding how that would happen. It's like, okay, well, that's a really far-fetched way of going about it. Understanding Bitcoin would limit the ability to do transactions, I'm into Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin. My intention is to own one Bitcoin in my a whole Bitcoin in my life. And I would love for that to take place. I don't mean at the way it's going right now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, to catch up to being able to get that, because I only have half of one right now. So, it would take quite a bit to get another, or to get that full Bitcoin going. But that's my intent, because I believe that Bitcoin could do exactly. Oh, my sister's trying to call. Sorry, sis. I want to. But I'm totally on board with a lot of some of like the Bitcoin Maximus say out there, like as far as the price and where it's going to go and stuff like that. But I think about like, okay, yeah, that's according to the dollar system staying in existence the way it is, right? That's because what you're saying is just like, the whole argument to the Bitcoin theory, right, is that it's going to be like this digital revolutionary currency that can wrap itself around the world that everybody can use. But the limitations of it through not only like, speed of transactions and then just the simple Gresham's law of bad money being chased out by good money. And then also like the Cantillon effect, right? Triffin's dilemma, Triffin's dilemma would be a little different in it, but when it comes to all these different theories that you put into it, Bitcoin won't work. It won't work for a global world currency. It will create more issues than we have now, and if the issues do exist, they're not going to be any better than what we are experiencing. Right? So, in fact, I think it's better that we have this way because now you at least have some people who can figure out what the system is like and then go in and join in. The other one is going to be creating crashes and booms and bust cycles that people are not going to be prepared for, and it's going to be quite devastating on a lot of individuals who will suffer and die in misery, and I'm not looking forward to it. Right? I mean, it's just like either way, I know it's going to be bad, but at least with this system, we know what we have. We know the evil that we got, if you want to call it evil. And I'm not saying it's a good system, right? And the Fed. Be heavy in silver and gold. Be all those things, but understand how it works so that you can take advantage just like those people are doing. People, you can look at it and say they're just, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know how it is that you can look at it, but I used to look at them as like, I want to, you know, see these guys as like evil people with the intent to like do damage to like the working class people. Like I'm not sure exactly how to describe like what it is that I used to look at as far as their evil intent. I don't see that anymore, right? What I see it is the monetary policy has progressed into this situation that we are now in. And now we can take advantage of that by looking at things like how would Bitcoin go to $400 million? See, if you have silver go up to $500 an ounce, it would be so awesome, right? It would be so awesome for a lot of people who have bought heavily into silver, especially if they were getting in under $20 an ounce. Having that sort of situation is very realistic. It is very realistic to have a $500 an ounce silver, and it's because the supply of it is not as much as people would believe. In fact, there's quite a bit of idea that there's going to be shortages of silver going into the future, and that's going to be very damaging to industries like solar and medical and building computers and stuff like that. So that whole scenario is very realistic, and that could drive silver, even higher. I mean, who knows? It could go all the way past gold. It's just like, it's incredible to think what it is that it could really do. Now, if silver goes to $500 an ounce or $1,000 an ounce or matches gold price or something like that, how many people do you think are going to be investing into mining silver? All right? It's going to jump. How much silver is going to be harvested out of places? It's going to be pulled out of all the what I like to call urban mining, like all the silver that's been found but have been stored away is now pulling out of storage, right? All the urban mining coming out, all this silver supply would start hitting the market as the demand is going to be for the demand for it driving the prices up would then start investing into the production and finding and gathering of silver. No matter what you do, right? There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. At this point, there's like 19 something million Bitcoin out there, and the rest of them are going to take like another 200 years or 150 years to come out. So like this is it. This is all the supply of Bitcoin can be. So even if you ramped it up to $400 million an ounce or a Bitcoin, right? You're not going to be able to say, okay, I want to invest into production of Bitcoin. Well, sure, you can go and invest into the production of Bitcoin, but you're not going to bring any more Bitcoin supply. You're just going to go out there and attempt to try and get a coin that's going to be worth $400 million. And that's going to be very difficult. And that's where I'm like, I love the idea of Bitcoin as a speculative asset that's going to just shoot to the moon. It's like a lottery ticket. right? And it's going to be, I'm going to laugh if it happens. I'm going to be like, I can't believe it. Wow, that's how I did it, Amazing. And I'm literally looking at it like that. If it goes to zero, I'd be like, yeah, I should have cashed out. And I'm going to laugh at it the same because my importance on it is almost nothing because I know it doesn't work as a world reserve currency. It's not going to work to do transactions with. It's not elastic. It's going to hoard by the most industrious people. It's going to deprive other people of being able to do transactions. It'll be a continuously deflationary currency that'll be very difficult to operate and do business in. I mean, it's just like I can see it. I can see it plain as day. And if you read the Cantillon effect and all the four economic theories, you would see it too. But you would also see it as a speculative asset, and you'd be like, "Holy crap, man! Talk about like the Beanie Babies or Tulip Mania or whatever, man. Yeah, this is the king of them all. And the awesome thing about it is that you can't produce any more of them. And it is useful because it does transactions with anybody in the world. Even way cooler. Like it is the most coolest, awesome, most speculative, best bet in the entire world. But I mean, again, my importance on it is pretty low. Right? And then the only thing next to that would be gold, in my opinion. In fact, I think gold is better because, at least it's real. Boom, 500 people watching, man. Thank you for hitting the like button. We got 170 people watching right now with $12 in super chats because you guys are always so generous with them super chats. Man, I am just amazed by how many comments we have going right now. It's just incredible. Okay, I'm going to cruise down to the bottom because, I don't want to go back. Okay. Hey, Brody, what's happening, my man? And can't be upgraded in time, most likely, though it's possible that it might. Starting to run. Yeah, I'm just going to be a regular farmer. Hey, you know what? And that, to me, like I think back about I've said it before, when I look back upon my life, living on that little hobby farm, having, to deal with the chickens in the garden and stuff like that, it was a bummer time because I didn't have a whole lot going on in my life, didn't have income, breaking down cars, and, somewhat of a depression, drinking, stuff like that. You set that stuff aside, but the actual general well-being of life, like I was entertained, I had food, I was generally feeling like, fairly happy just being on that little piece of property. And I think to myself, man, how simple would that have just been able to, if I could just have fixed the whole drinking and the depression and all that other stuff that was going on at the time. If I had just fixed that, then that would have been like a really cool life, right? I mean, think about how awesome that it's just so simple and just easy and just nothing to it. All right, you got suckered in, Yui. Yeah, okay. The destabilization of the dollar doesn't seem advantageous to U.S. Americans. To us Americans? Well, de-dollarization is not. But if it was actually happening in a way that was going to be significant to the dollar, then I would be worried about it. But this is the thing. I don't care how. If you want to get out of dollars, that's fine. Go ahead. That's just fine. But you're limiting yourself on the ability to do transactions with people by a significant fashion. And in fact, you're going to do damage to yourself in a way that you're not going to actually be able to do it efficiently, even if you were to do stuff outside of the dollar and you do it in your own sovereign currencies. Things are going to be very difficult. It's going to be cumbersome. You're not going to do as much transactions. And without transactions, you're not going to have the ability to grow and prosper. Now, granted, they're bigger, they got all this stuff, like all the arguments that push the BRICS nations into dominating and ruling and being all that other stuff. Totally get it, right? Totally get it, man. I mean, I see it the same way. I see everything that they are talking about. I totally understand the arguments behind it all, right? I'm not trying to push against them, right? What I am trying to say though is that in order to knock the dollar off that world currency status, it is going to be a very, very difficult thing to do. And if you have nations like China dumping treasuries, you have to understand what it is that's truly happening with China and the reasonings that they are dumping those treasuries. See, this is an argument that a lot of times people will bring to me. And I think to myself, and it was just like, what happened when you sold a treasury? What was that occurred? You were handed dollars. What did you do with those dollars? You're paying off your dollar-denominated debts. See, China is trying to deal with the fact that they don't have enough U.S. dollars. And the fastest, easiest way to get dollars is to sell treasuries. And as people see this happening, they're looking at it saying, oh, China's getting out of the dollar, getting out of U.S. treasuries. No, what they are trying to do is they are trying to pay their debts. And the dollar is what they need in order to pay those debts back with. Just look at the property developers in China. They all go under when their dollar-denominated debt begins to fail. Once that fails, their credit rating is shot. They can no longer exist. They go under. All right? It all has to do with the dollar. And now there is other contenders. They are so far off in the distance that you can't even see them. Like, they're not even there. Like, they're like little tiny infant little ants in the comparatively to the giant elephant of the United States, right? I mean, they're just this tiny little thing. And when you think about like what it is that happens in order for the dollar to even exist as this world reserve currency, and you have to think, okay, so what is it that the dollar is doing? The United States is doing something very unique, and it's very devastating, and it will be very devastating. But it's also the same reasons that we have the standard of living that we have, and that's because of our debt issuance. It's because of those U.S. treasuries. So U.S. treasuries have a huge demand outside of the United States in order to do the transactions with. See, like it's the dollar that they're doing transactions, but it's dollar-denominated U.S. treasuries that is doing the transactions because people would rather hold treasuries than cash because treasuries will give them a little bit of an interest. And this ends up being the form of payment when it comes to doing a lot of the world transactions. So they're done in dollars, but they're done in U.S. treasuries. And having that safe and liquid asset like the U.S. treasury is what's providing a lot of the collateral and basis to the financial systems that people are now enjoying in order to do the transactions that they are doing. You have to think about it. It's like everybody wants to sell. Everybody wants to make the sell happen. How do you make that sell happen? And if you take away the ability to function within a system because you are diminishing the amount of currency that is actually out there within the economy because you are very industrious and hoarding it, then you're going to have collapse of it. So this is the reason why everybody is out there using this one single currency. It's because it's elastic. Because you can buy out there, you can get as many U.S. treasuries as you want. Right? You want to go out there and buy them, you can buy them. There's people out there selling them. It's a liquid market. There's people out there buying and selling all day long. You can get as many as few as you want, like sell them or whatever. It's like you can participate with that market, no problem. You're not going to be able to do that with any other country at all because nobody is willing to go into deep debt as the United States has. So that's like the key to why the whole thing is even working off of the U.S. dollar is because of the U.S. Treasury debt issuance. And that's what's sad about it. Now, take another country, China. China is going to be the world dominating currency out there. Okay, so go buy a bunch of Chinese denominated debt, right? Who's going to trust that? They can't, their property developers are failing. They're figuring it out. They're trying to figure out how they're going to deal with the deflationary scenario by ramping up production to destroy the rest of the production around the world. So not only are they going into deflation, they're going to force even more deflation and take a huge hit upon the world. Try to destroy the manufacturers out there around the world, knowing that they're going to destroy their own manufacturers, but when the dust settles, they will have more producers having been already the base for producing. This is something that I see, I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm just saying, man, if they're going to fight, that's the way I would do it too. I would overwhelm them with production, just exactly like they are doing, and let them destroy themselves with their own investments. And at the end of it, it was just like, they've experienced this. This isn't new to China. China goes through, they got a long history of money policies. All right, almost an hour into this. You guys having fun? All right. Exactly. It's all sham. Okay, if silver goes to $500 an ounce, just imagine what your gas, bread, and eggs will cost. Well, I mean, it would, again, what would be the reasonings behind it? Right now, it should be $230 an ounce. I mean, they pull it out of the ground, a 10-to-1 ratio. I mean, even then, you really think about it, half of it goes to industrial use and never really makes it out there for investors to buy. So really, if investor demand for it was, to increase, it would only be into a 5-to-1 ratio to gold. Right. And then if you think about it, like the paper silver market, where if those paper silver investors were to dump their paper silver and invest that into silver, well, that could shoot silver 100 times the demand that is existent today that happens to be provided within the paper market. You know, see, this is where a lot of people like, like to me, when I saw this whole paper manipulation scheme that's going on within silver, that was the one thing that really got me into silver, right? But then I realized they can carry that. They can carry that on. Like I don't think that they can crash that mark. Like people try to, get them to like do like a GameStop kind of thing with them. I don't believe it. Right? Tried to do that game back in the day, with Max Kaiser and stuff like that, and it didn't work. And so, like, as far as like, trying to crash the silver short position or something like that. All right. If they keep printing money, houses are going to be worth twice as much after 4 years. So there's plenty of places to make 100%. Hey, where'd you go? Oh, okay, you are right. Monetary policies is not new to China. Chinese economists were already writing about it in 700 BC, way back when Carthage, is that I say that, still existed. Will the BRICS break silver gold paper markets? I don't know. I mean, if you went into a position in which that you were going to back your banking system with gold and silver, yeah, then that would really like, because you would have to stock it, right? And then how do you like? Then you would have to issue something like, what is it, a digital token or something to back it? Like how do you do this? What's going to end up happening is that, just like anybody, right? They're going to want a convenience. They're going to want to store it. They're going to want a convenience for having a precious metal. Like they don't want to go down to the store and say, "Hey, I want to, break, I only want a loaf of bread, so give me some change." Like this is very difficult. It's cumbersome, right? We can't use this. I mean, we can. Like, I mean, I'm cool with it. We can break it down in little tiny pieces and be all barbaric with it or whatever they want to call it, right? But I understand the difficulties of something like that happening, right? So using it in a physical form is probably not going to be very effective, especially in a world of like billions of transactions a second or whatever you got going on. I don't even know how many transactions around the world. You're just simply not going to be able to do it, right? Unless it was on a digital component of some sort, right? And so that's like, I don't know. I guess I kind of forgot what I was going with that. Breaking the paper markets. So you would have to like store it, right? And then once you store it, right, people are going to say like, what is that going to be like, right? Then that token comes out. Well, that's like the paper market coming out, because then once you got a paper, you're like, hey, I don't have it, but I have this. Can I use it as collateral? Now you got more paper, right? Because you're borrowing something else. So here you have this thing sitting on a shelf that just had this initial piece of paper that came out that said it was a contract for it, but then it got used as collateral, created more paper from it. Right? And so now you got these two pieces of paper that are being used as currency, and this really could be used as currency too, but it's not supposed to be because it's sitting on a vault, right? But not everybody comes in for it, so maybe we could just kind of issue a little bit more paper to back this, since everybody's wanting to do transactions, and now you have the problem with the fiat currency. So the limitations of using this is always going to present itself. You will have booms and bust cycles that will occur because you are using gold and silver as a currency. I don't care if it's Bitcoin, gold and silver, whatever it is. It has to be an elastic money supply in order to avoid the booms and busts of the business cycle that are so impactful to people's lives, that causes the depressions where people are lining up for in soup lines and stuff like that. Nowadays we have this fiat currency system in which that those soup lines are now moved out into EBT and manipulations and where they can go with the markets, and like how it is that they can force themselves into particular situations as far as like the laws and regulations that they can pass. And this is how the fiat currency tries to keep itself moving and alive in order to create the debt issuance that is actually separating the rich and the poor. That is, the whole reason why they're fighting to try and keep the whole thing together, is because the people who understand the system are the ones who wanted to keep it together, and the people at the bottom of the system are complaining that they have manipulated the system and they've separated themselves from the lower half or whatever. And it's just like, it's all obvious. Like it's to me, like, what else were they gonna do, right? Other than manipulate the system and separate themselves. Like, if you had the power to do it and you knew what was going on, you wouldn't do it. Like, I mean, it's human nature. It's just like, shit, if I don't do it, somebody's gonna do it. I better do it, right? And then, I mean, if you understood how you could buy into a neighborhood, buy all these houses, and then rent them out, and you saw that somebody else was going to do it, and you go and do it, and then people start calling you a slumlord, you're like, well, then you go do it. Damn, I mean, it's just like, what are you complaining to me for? Like, I saw it and I did something about it, and now here I am, separated myself from everybody else down there, and you want to complain to me about it? Like, I did something wrong? You know? And it's just like, understand the system for what it is. And like, if we want to go to silver and gold, I'm cool with it, right? I understand how that's going to work too. But it's like, I mean, I look at the monetary policy as far as what they're going to do, and they're trying to raise that neutral interest rate. As far as that's the only thing I think they're concerned about, is raising the neutral interest rate and keeping people employed. As long as people are employed, then they're going to keep inflation elevated. That's going to raise the neutral interest rate. They get all their ammunition back. They're, cool with it. As far as like the damaging effects that it happens to the society and to our government and to everything else that's going on out there, they recognize it. They've mentioned it. They say it all the time. The United States is on an unsustainable debt path. And guess what? We buy U.S. debt. That means if we don't buy U.S. debt, we're not issuing out dollars. If we don't issue out dollars, there's going to be a deflationary crash coming from that. It's always about more issuance. And I mean, right now we're going into quantitative tightening, or we have a quantitative tightening aspect to it, but that's only, after, dramatic rises, right? It's like, it's obvious how, to me, like, how desperate they were in order to try and get their ability to then use their monetary policy in the way that was traditional to them. It was like a desperate move. It's like, and it worked. Like, it's working, right? And that's what gets me, is like, a lot of people just, they want to call it something different, but it's like, I don't know. Past performance equals future predictions. Well, true, please stop with the caps. All right, today I can pay off all my debt, including my house, and still have Bitcoin because I believed in America's ruined monetary policy. Yeah, Ape, and that's the thing. Well, why do you think I'm buying into Bitcoin? Why do you think I believe that it might go to $400 million an ounce? Right? I mean, I believe like the stuff that Mark Moss was talking about, the price levels of Bitcoin. But the thing is that if Bitcoin goes to $400 million an ounce, you're still entering the fiat system. In order to acquire fiat, which has to exist, that means there can't be a failed monetary policy. You understand? Like, this is, I mean, I'm trying to be like a jerk or anything about it, but this is the whole point. Is like, if Bitcoin goes to $400 million an ounce, like, for me, okay, I'm sitting in a position, maybe not for you, like maybe you don't look at it this way, but maybe a lot of other people do. So maybe I should clarify that. If Bitcoin goes to $400 million an ounce, the whole statement in itself, $400 million an ounce, must say, even if it's not doing well, it must say that this system is still in operation, because you'd be willing to sell it for $400 million an ounce. Or a coin. You guys know what I mean. And it doesn't mean whether it's gold or silver or whatever. It's just like, it doesn't matter what it is, right? If it's a fixed amount, or at least a limited amount that is out there. And if it went to $400 million an ounce, I guarantee you there would be a lot of mining going on. But you guys know what I meant as far as Bitcoin goes. So, just that's like the thing about it, is just like, I don't want the monetary policy to fail. I don't want the monetary system to fail. I don't want it to fail, but I want $400 million ounce Bitcoin. So that's kind of, right? So I want to see the system continue so I can have $400 million an ounce Bitcoin. Right? Because if I have $400 million Bitcoin, or I keep saying an ounce, $400 million Bitcoin, right? If I have $400 million Bitcoin, then I could do so many wonderful things within the monetary policies, within the monetary system. Right? For myself, for other people, I mean, I'm a generous dude. Like, I don't even give a shit about material possessions. Like, I would do some fun things out there, build parks and make nice things, let's make cool things happen. That's the way I believe. But I know not everybody would do that, right? But I would have to have a monetary system that would still be in operation in order for me to have that kind of thing happen. So I look at the monetary system as something that's going to function going into the future so that I could take advantage of $400 million an ounce Bitcoin or $500 or $1,000 an ounce silver or whatever it is that's going on. Right? But the moment that it fails, then you got to set that stuff all aside. You got to think barter system. You got to think now digital currencies and limitations of how much we're going to do it. Maybe we do Bitcoin and silver trades. Maybe we incorporate all this stuff into a big giant digital coin within itself that has a basket of different hard commodities within it. I mean, I've thought about a lot of different ways of trying to come up with currencies or monetary systems. Like, I mean, I've looked at them. There is no good way of going about anything. Right? It's just the way, it's just like understanding those laws. And by understanding the theories and how they work and how to position yourself, you can just see, okay, well, if this system continues on, these things are going to happen. Maybe I should, take advantage of, how it is that the Federal Reserve has to continue on keeping the interest rates elevated in order to raise the neutral interest rate. And if they keep those interest rates elevated, a lot of people are going to look at it very differently than the way I'm going to be looking at it. And as many people saw the interest rates move up and thinking it was going to crash the housing market, something quite opposite took place from that. It was, the housing market did dramatically better, during a time in which that everybody knew it was going to crash. And a lot of people are still believing it. And if you listen to Jason Hartman, you wouldn't, right? You would find, he was up on stage giving the presentations yet again, showing how it is that the housing market is expensive compared to what? Right? And he shows the comparisons to like other things that are out there that you can compare price, the prices to, and you can see that like houses, and like I said, I don't want to go and speak for it because I can't remember some of the numbers that he had, but I mean, he has a great presentation that talks about it, and it's like, it really shows that it's not the monetary system that is necessarily placing the houses where they are, it's the way that the separation has happened, right? When you have ever increasing amounts of new money that is pouring into the system for decades, like we have experienced, that separation of the rich and the poor, it shows that move into luxuries that have taken place. Now you think about it, what is it that rich people have, right? They're property owners. They move into, they are the ones who own houses, and there's only a limited amount of houses. There's only so many of them. I don't care how many, like you can build a bunch of them. They can go into a mass build operation and provide more houses, but the fact is that there's a limited amount of them. But the demand for houses, although there's a limit to how much demand there is, it is dramatically higher than the supply. And now what fluctuates the demand is the capabilities of the buyer, right? If the buyer says, man, I can't operate, I can't afford the payments, I can't afford the interest rates, I can't afford the down payment, doesn't mean that they don't want a house, right? I mean, if they could afford it, they would want it, and then they would be in demand of one, right? They're in demand of it. There is an ever increasing amount of demand for homes, but there is only so many of them out there. And because of that, there is a separation that takes place between the rich and the poor when the new money comes in, because as the new money comes in, the people who have access to it, the people who have access to that financing, the down, whatever it is that they have done, they were industrious. They put themselves in that position in order to acquire that new money. They are the ones who are able to acquire the property, which is limited to the rest of the people out there. They just separated themselves from the rich and the poor because they had the access to the new money, which is the debt issuance. Most people take the debt issuance and force themselves down at the bottom because they buy stupid things with it that doesn't do anything for them. There's no return on their investment. Okay? You buy a house at 3% like I did, and I thought for sure it was going to go underwater. I put an incredible amount of money on it, thinking even with this huge down payment that it would go underwater, and instead it did quite the opposite of it. Now I have an incredible amount of equity within a home that I purchased just 2 years ago. Do you think the wealth effect might have come down on people like me? Yeah, like I understood what happened. I don't get that wealth effect from it. I'm not looking at it thinking I have $150,000 in the bank or some stupid thing off my property, right? I don't look at it like that. I mean, I don't think about tapping into that to go and buy like vacations and Camaros and stuff. I could easily do that. I'm not going to do that, right? That's not what I see happening, because the access to the new money has given me benefit in the way that I have now separated myself from a lot of people out there who are really not much different from the position that I'm in. It was this the way I did it, right? And really, people say to me all the time, it's like, not all of us can have a YouTube channel. No, but really, you could have a second job. And I worked this damn YouTube channel like it was a second job. And, I really still do today. And because of that, that's the reason why I was able to do some of the things that I was doing. But, like, it's not going to change. Like, understanding that. Like, and it scared the hell out of me to try and move into, to try and buy this house. But getting into it, and then once you're into it, you go for a while, then it's like, the uncomfortable feelings of that anxiety and, fear of what's going to happen in the future and all that other stuff starts turning into a comfortable, beautiful life, and just like everybody says, they're nervous when they buy their house. Everybody says it. I mean, I guess not everybody. There's probably some really rich people out there who just don't even think about it, but it's just, yeah. Even the dumbest are benefiting from luck. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess. I can't even rent a hotel room to live in with Bitcoin. No, and that's why I'm saying I want the monetary system to work. I don't want to use Bitcoin as a transactional currency. Like, I mean, I don't care. I mean, you want to use Bitcoin, sure, whatever. Like, I'm good with it, right? I mean, I'm cool. I would like to be able to earn a consistent income, and I can't see where that would happen as the diminishing and the hoarding of Bitcoin would take place. So I want a monetary system to function in order for me to get in and out of Bitcoin and be able to take advantage of the high prices and spikes and demands for it. And I would love to see it to go to $400 million an ounce. Like, to me, I was just like, when like I saw that up there, I was like, oh man, that would be so awesome. I would totally pay my house off if it was at $400 million an ounce, like, that would be just the greatest. Like, I don't even know what I would do with $400 million. I would go, like, I would travel. That's what I would probably do. I'd travel around, go check out places. Luck or chance is just you incompatibly to understand the circumstances. Yeah. Organs, precious metals, and cryptos are the currency of the future. Oh, God, organs. Okay. The utility of a currency is that it is stable and means of exchange. It is being held to buy more later. Its utility is lost. Exactly. Well, the thing is like, people like, it's not a store of value. Like, people want to look at dollar and say, like, a dollar earned today can't buy what it did when they'd have all these things. And I'm like, it can't. It can't do that. It cannot possibly store value. It is not meant to store value. It is meant for you to take your hours that you have earned, or take the hours that you have worked, and immediately transfer them over to the goods and services that you need in your life. And if you don't do that, then you have to invest the rest of it. And if you don't, then take it for a very short period of time, emergency capabilities, or something of that kind of nature to it, because if you try to use it as a store of value, it will fail. Now, there are times in which that you could take advantages of buying opportunities going into the future, and you need to have the cash on hand. But it's to understand that it's the ability to transfer your hours to stuff. That's it. That's what it's made for. It's just, and you can transfer it to investments, you can transfer it to Bitcoin, you can transfer it to gold, you can transfer it to somebody else's hours to do some other kind of work. You can transfer it to do all kinds of stuff, and people get pissed that it doesn't hold its value. And it's just like, yeah, because it's doing all this damn transferring. Like, it can't possibly hold a value and do that. Right? I mean, it just can't. Now, the awesome thing about it is that we can lock in debt. And that's, I know it's really odd to say, right? And especially coming from somebody who's like kind of like a sound money guy, really, when you think about it, like, I believe in hard currencies, but you can lock in debt. And by locking in that debt, now you can take advantage of this system. And that's where, like, all these guys are talking about how it is that you then advance yourself beyond what it is that you are facing from these evil people, is you can take advantage of that. Good debt. It's what, like, Robert Kiyosaki has always preached about. It's what Jason says. It's what all these guys are talking about. And this is where, like, I'm not trying to sell their stuff. Like I don't make commissions off of any of that stuff. I'm just saying that as somebody who has been broke in debt, trying to figure out how it is that we can get in how it is that we can get into a world of a better life and experiences and health and time with our family and all that other stuff. And I have elevated myself into a position in which that I'm now on stage speaking with these people, having lunches with guys like G. Edward Griffin, who wrote the book The Creature from Jekyll Island. I'm doing all this stuff, and the one thing that I have definitely found is that if you want to do this, you have to do it in real estate. Like it's almost like you're not going to be able to do it any other way. And I tell you what, when you read the Cantillon essay and how much he is putting it on the property owners, and then everybody else, like nobody else matters. It's the property owners, and then there's like the labor force, and there's the population, the people. The property owners is everything, right? And that's what it's one of the things that I have found from listening to all these people. And what the awesome thing about it is that most of them, when you talk to them, they want you to do it too. Like they encourage me to do it. They're like, dude, how come you're not doing more of this, man? You're right here. What do you need? What do you need from me? Right? This is what I hear from all these guys. What is it that I could do to help you elevate yourself? I mean, that's like what Matthew says to me, like just about every time I speak to him. And I'm thinking, man, I do. I need to take advantage of these things. I mean, I feel like I have already got to start by buying my own house, buying it at the right time, understanding that even though I was scared and everything that was taking place at the time, I'm now in a position in which that, man, I could really use this to elevate myself into more properties, right? Become, that like all the rest of these guys out there. And it's the only way to do it. And sometimes you have to start off small and in, creative ways. House hacking, buying duplexes, doing, teaming up with other people. It's like, there's a million ways to get in. And, I would follow guys like Lumberjack Landlord and Dion and Zuber. Hey, thank you, Deja Vu, another member for 5 months now. Right on. What do we have up here? Okay. Nitrim. Thank you for the $5. All right. Realistic options for those with new money are invest in tangibles, business or markets, the knowledge and timing and other things that separate. Yeah, and I agree with that. Like if I was to give any kind of investment advice, which I don't, but if I was to, then I will tell you what it is that I have done, because I really, outside of the purchase of this house, I haven't gotten into real estate. I don't like my area that I'm in. It's too expensive. It's just like it's not a like to me it's not the prime opportunity for me as far as a new real estate investor. And then I have a day job which keeps me kind of tied to this area. And so with these excuses, which are just excuses, it's not anything that I could really say is a limitation, right? They're simply just words coming out of my mouth that are excuses. But with them, it kind of keeps me local here, and I don't really search much further out there to where it is that I could be buying properties. So with that, I do invest in the stock market. Like I buy Altria, right, which is Marlboro cigarettes, Anheuser-Busch. I think they're getting out of Anheuser-Busch in a lot of ways. Anyway, ticker symbol MO has a great dividend yield. I buy into ExxonMobil. Just started recently buying into some of that. I buy the Total Vanguard ETF, Total Stock Market ETF, and I buy the Vanguard Russell 1000 Growth Stocks. So those are like the four, and then I buy Coinbase. Coinbase has done really, really well for me. I dollar cost average all last year and just absolutely killed it. I think that stock on my portfolio is up like 250%. It's by far the biggest position, but it's like one of the least amount that I've actually invested into. Well, actually, I guess ExxonMobil is. But that's like where I position myself in the stock market right now. Pretty simple. Really, I just started that a couple of years ago, but it's growing up to, I think is fairly good for just a couple of years. I buy Bitcoin, right? So I buy quite a bit of Bitcoin. I don't buy quite a bit. I have quite a bit in Bitcoin now, simply because I have been dollar cost averaging for so long into it. And the price move has been so dramatic that it's really become like the biggest position inside of my whole portfolio. That's why I'm really excited. It's like, yeah, let it go to $400 an ounce, but keep the monetary system going so I can pay off my house, right? I keep calling it an ounce, a Bitcoin. I guess I'm looking down at silver. That's why I'm going to put these in my pocket. So stop calling it an ounce. All right. Hey, thank you so much, Matthew, man. That's very cool of you. This is for Ape. I don't even read an Ape stuff, man. I have been told for 22 years not to buy real estate. I didn't listen. I have made tens of millions over those 22 years. I have assets with others have liabilities. Oh, Matthew, dude, thank you for the $10. I really appreciate it, man. The support is so generous of you. But I want to tell you, man, screw those guys. F them. Hey, I mean, I'm sitting here as a broke dude with nothing in my life, man. Like literally nothing. I have nothing going on, right? I start this YouTube channel. I'm building it up. I'm not sure what's going on with it. I have this audience. I meet George Gammon. I get on stage. I'm shaking hands with some of the most richest people you could ever possibly meet. People who are trying to say, get up and do this too, right? Like I am like, if I thought it was fake, right, then I would call it out. I would say this is fake bullshit, right? But I'm experiencing it firsthand. Like I'm not even in the game. Like I am doing nothing to sell anything except for my membership to my channel, which is $1 a month. So if you go ahead and join the channel for $1 a month, you would experience some of the most helpful information you'll ever experience. Oh, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but no, this is the reality of the situation is that you are going to find that if you really want to make it into like that life of like living independent of the state, of other people, of the government, like, well, maybe not the government because they're going to always have their fingers in everything that you do. However, you can put yourself in a position in which that is less intrusive on your daily life. Like you don't have to have that day job, living under those kind of conditions. You can go wherever it is you want to go. In order to experience that sort of life, then you have to go all the way back into history to see what it is that the people were doing back then. And this dude right here, 200 plus years ago, was saying the property owners, right? So it's not hard to figure out, right? Everybody I know, all the rich people, right? They're all real estate. Every single one of them. And they're all generous with their information and their knowledge and their helpfulness. And they're like, dude, you can do it too. Don't complain about having expensive rent. Go and be a landlord, go have rental properties. And this is like, it's like, it's hard not to see it once you have seen it. Like that's all there is. Like, once you have experienced it for years, once you have been involved with it. And I mean, I'm not even involved. That's what I'm saying. Like once you have come that close to the money, to like, I mean, these are the people I'm shaking hands with them. I'm like, we're talking about experiences that I'm having like at the, in my day job, working my every day, working the till. They're intently listening to the information I have because of the macroeconomic view I have. I can really, enlighten them on some of the things that I'm experiencing and seeing. And they find that information so valuable. And I think to myself, man, like how, like your information is valuable, right? You see the symbiotic relationship that is happening here, and I'm not even doing anything. Like I'm just like experiencing life. Right? And I'm telling you guys, like people look at me, I go to these rebel capitalist things and people are like, so like, how many lumber yards do you own or something? And I'm like, no, you don't understand, man, dude. I'm like, I'm selling 2x4s at a till. Like I make an hourly wage. I don't own anything. Right. And then they're like, I don't say it like that. I just, oh no, I work there, I just kind of play it off real quick. But like a lot of people, when I'm on the stage talking with these people, they think I have $100 million. And I'm like, dude, I don't even, I'm like, like not even close to anything like that. I mean, I'm closer to zero than I am anything else. Like way closer to zero than I am any of those guys. Thank you, Matthew. Think again, man. The best deal on the internet is your membership. It's helped me better manage my assets. Would be better where, wouldn't be better where I am without your hard work and sharing what you know. Well, thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I don't, it's not easy to retain the information. Like it's not like, you're not gonna get like some flashy, I'm gonna, blow your mind with some like, crazy like video that I've edited with all kinds of like, sound, edits and stuff like that going on. We're taking a speech and we are breaking it down word for word. This is a boring ass thing that I'm going through, right? This is difficult. It's you have to do a lot of research in order to understand how it is that these Federal Reserve people speak in order to then break it down and understand that these are the way that they're communicating these words to you so that you can understand what it is that it reflects the monetary policy, because they use words you understand the definition to, but the way that they use them and the way that you take them in becomes almost confusing, like it's another language. And that's what we're doing with these speeches, is we break them down and we have a discussion about them. We talk about what it is that they are saying within them. And by doing that, you can internalize this information to a way that you can now look at the monetary policy and say, okay, as everybody believes that they're going for this 2% target, we know from their own communications and evidence that we can see out there from the mainstream media by they accidentally either relinquishing it, or we can recognize it how it's hidden within their communications, that they are not going for a 2% target. They're going for a 2% average inflation rate over time, and interest rates are going to stay elevated for a very long time. Extra high for extra long. Getting high and staying high. Remember that video I did over a year ago? Talking about this very thing? Thank you, Matthew. I really appreciate that too, by the way. And there's plenty of videos there. Like going even if we don't do any more membership videos from this point on, there's a list of membership only videos there that are incredibly valuable. And for $1, you can go and watch all of them. There's hours and hours and hours of monetary policy breakdown. The disconnect between haves and have-nots goes back thousands of years. Will still got it pretty damn good by historical standards. I agree. Dissident 112, I totally agree with that. Like this is a time in life where the conveniences that we get to experience should not be looked like down upon. This is like, we have some pretty cool stuff in our lives. I took off from my house Friday morning, was in Orlando, hung out for the weekend, and it was back here at my house Monday talking live stream. How cool is that? Like, to be able to do that, fly all the way from corner to corner of the country, right? Do a speaking engagement, hang out for the weekend, and come home. I mean, to be able to have that in our lives and feel safe and confident and everything about that, for the most part, I understand we have had disruptions in our lives, but my experience with that was awesome. Sarah and I get on the plane, we had the third seat, like nobody sat down. I was sitting there and I'm like, watched the plane door, the last person get on, and I'm watching them and they're looking like past our seat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nobody sitting next to us. We're going to totally have this whole thing to ourselves, and we certainly did. And so Sarah and I were able to fly all the way to Florida with just, there's two of us in the three seats there. So we were stretched out. We were able to get some sleep on the flight. It was perfect. It was so awesome. And then we land in Orlando. All-nighter picked us up. Wayne and all-nighter. Wayne had rented a car. It was a great experience. Everything about it is awesome. Like, those conveniences, being able to use a cell phone to do that. Like, I love it. I absolutely love the technologies. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing. And for somebody who doesn't really use them much, right? I mean, it was funny. They were talking about Luddites at the convention, the people who destroy technology and hate the advancement of it and stuff like that. And I'm not necessarily a Luddite, because I like technology and stuff like that. I guess maybe I'm just the one who wants to experience it in a more organic and happy, experience of it. Like, I don't want to go out there and grab it. I want it to come to me and increase my life, and say, hey man, here's something that, can provide you with something that's better than what you have been experiencing. And to have that happen is good. Like, that's a good thing. I don't care how you look at it, Disconnect your battery so the car doesn't die. Oh, I'm not worried about it, Football Fred. It's a strong battery. It's all right. I just wanted to be my own bank. Urban, no, you are factually wrong. Welcome to come to live stream and see. I share the data. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who's arguing with you, Matthew, man, but you don't have to defend yourself, dude. You have totally, I'm not, I don't even know where, let that shit go. And, I don't know, See, this is the thing. Like, there was a time when I would have looked at a lot of the stuff as a scam. Like, I would have thought this is the, whatever that convention, the way those things are talking, network marketing scheme, whatever, it's a scam, and I would have said something like of that nature. However, I'm in this, right? I'm not selling anything, right? George, the only thing he makes off of me is that I come on stage and present an hour's worth of information that fills a spot within his convention. Conventions are for profit. That's why they throw them on. You sell tickets, and then you bring people who are entertaining and informative and can bring, people's attention, and hopefully they come to this crowd. All this is very legit stuff, right? They they have a selling collective group. It is expensive, right? I'm not a member of it, right? People ask me all the time, are you going to be a member of it? And I was like, serious for my blood. I can't do it, right? Like, I'm not to that level yet. There will be a day that that would be something I would do. It is very expensive and it is an exclusive group, but they do some amazing things. And I think that that group is something that if I was in a position in which that I was an accredited investor and I was doing the, 100 million, I had the $400 million Bitcoin, I would totally be part of those type of environments. And this is the type of crew that he is trying to put together. So the audience, right, of these conventions are of that high quality, right, of investors and accredited investors and people who are looking to try and make themselves better in life. You know what? This is something like, I don't want to knock anybody out there. I don't talk bad about anybody's physical features, no matter what. I am not in the most physical shape right now, considering there was a time in my life when I was doing construction. I think that I was a power beast, right? However, I answer the phone and I drink a lot of coffee nowadays, and it's not quite the same. But this is the thing that my wife pointed out. She said, "You know what's something interesting about these conventions is the amount of people who are not overweight, right? Like, there's people who are, everybody's of different size or whatever. I need that door was dripping. There's all kinds of body types and sizes and all. I'm not like, I love all people. I don't care what size you are, right? However, when you're a little bit more conscious about things, right? Who, where, what, this, that, the other thing, your finances, your body, your environment, everything that's going on, you're a little bit more inclined to probably go to a convention like this, is what I was thinking, right? And that's probably the reason, because I did. When she said it, I looked around the crowd and I went, wow, you're right. You're absolutely right. These are a very healthy, fit looking group, right? And not saying everybody, I mean, it's a mix of all kinds in there. But it was like, generally speaking, when I looked around, that's what I saw. Right? And so it leads me to believe that if you are going to be a healthy person, if you're going to do it, then you actually have to be in finance, or not finance, but investment in moving into a higher level of acquiring the funds. Because if you do that, it's just, I mean, it just makes sense, right? You're more active, you're eating healthier food, you're probably going to the doctor more often, you're probably joining the gyms and doing things like that. Everything about your life is better, and it's obvious when you see that in there, right? Like, I don't want to not be one of you, like, people were like, well, that's disgusting. Who would do those kind of things? It's like, what? Really? Like, of course you want to do those things. All right. You'll be well set for doing chemistry after the collapse. Okay. Let's see. I would say also stockpile lots of $1 bills. If the bank system goes down, nobody will have actual cash, and those will be worth $20 each. Actually, you're probably right, Bobby. Actually, and there's another argument that also goes along in complementing the idea of holding $1 bills or cash, and that is that a single, or not the single, Federal Reserve notes, doesn't matter if it's a single or $100 bill, Federal Reserve notes have the first lien and paramount right to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet if they were to go bankrupt, right? So if we have a collapse of the system, not only is cash going to be the main tool of barter, right? Because that's essentially what it's going to be, is the currency of, trading dollars for whatever it is you got. but it's also the first lien and paramount right to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet if they go bankrupt. So in that collapse, you take those Federal Reserve notes to the Federal Reserve Bank that issued them, and you have the right to their gold and SDRs or whatever else that they have on their balance sheet. Now, with that being said, the chances of you actually being able to get that is probably pretty slim, but it's at least written in law, within the Federal Reserve's, charter, that that's what would happen. All right, deflation will never happen again. Stop talking about it. Well, demonic Harvey, I don't believe you. Okay, and if you don't understand why it is that the deflationary scenario would occur due to a debt collapse, then I'm sorry, man, you're not seeing it. Like, you have to understand it. Internalize a debt collapse and how that would create a terrible issue within a deflationary aspect to the economy. Internalize that information, explain how that works, then use another argument, if you don't believe it, to then overwhelm and beat that one. So first, find my argument that says that a debt collapse deflationary scenario is most likely going to take place at some point as the dollar is abandoned, right? Which will actually create a dollar strengthening situation that causes the deflation, right? Whole world concept, right? Take that information, internalize it, figure out how I argue it better than me, and then come with your argument and beat it. Okay, that way I get to go to your argument and say, I'm going to internalize all your argument, figure out what it is that you said, take in that information, and then figure out information that then beats that. And then you do the same. And this is how we figure out how the hell this thing works. Right? I mean, if the dollar abandoned, loans would default. If the dollar is abandoned, loans would default. Yeah, and the whole world would collapse, and everybody would be suffering in misery and poverty. I hope that doesn't happen. Right? Like, I mean, and here's the thing. As I hope that doesn't happen, I continue to save copper pennies out of the till. I'll swap them out with zinc. I buy silver. I, look into Bitcoin. I'm doing all the things that I would need if there was a failed monetary system, but I don't believe that's going to be taking place. Right? It's the insurance policy against the exact thing. It's the hedge. Right? So as I am going to take the steps moving forward in my life, believing that the monetary policy is going to continue to exist, I'm going to take the efforts that I need to in order to ensure that if that doesn't work, I will be safe. Safer. Safe fish. There we go. I'll be safe fish. And that's the way it goes down. Like, if you want to put your faith in one direction, go for it, man. All right. Tell him you eat. Thanks, Terry. Common sense is uncommon. That's what most of the online red pill bros don't understand. The American empire will not collapse in a vacuum. Easy to stockpile coins and $1 bills. That's not deflation, that's a collapse. What happens to the ownership, dual entry keeping banks? That's why no banks are allowed to fail. It comes to who owns the stuff. Screws, okay. To the bottom. Wayne says, Bear Projects, I try to talk to people about how I make money in my sleep, and they say I'm crazy. I'm talking about health often. Wealth, the words, is derived from health. Are we not in a deflationary period now since 2008 and 9? Well, I think that was okay, so if you really think about it, the efforts that the Federal Reserve is going through right now, all the tools, all the things that they are doing is all in an attempt to prevent deflationary cycles or deflationary forces from impacting the economy, right? So they let interest rates run extra low, extra long for an extended period of time in hopes that inflation run hot, extra long for an extended period of time to make up for the past deviations from the 2% target. I don't know how many times I have said that thing, right? That exact words. The reasonings they were doing that is because it was very, very, very difficult to find inflation at the lower bound of zero. In fact, low interest rates is a deflationary force, and it was, oops, where we go? Sorry, guys. And it was the deflationary forces at a low interest rate that was actually screwing with the monetary policy. It was creating that low neutral interest rate world that then made adjustment of monetary policy an ineffective tool for stimulating the economy. And when you have low interest rates, the return on capital investment is very low. And if you have any kind of inflation that is anywhere near the 2% or even slightly above, and when you have a return on capital investment that is close to zero, the purchasing power that is diminished over time is now a deflationary force upon the economy. Higher interest rates over time is actually a good thing for the economy. It allows for savings and investment back into the economy, which then starts to create the stronger economy by producing and saving. But it is very difficult to maintain something like that because you have to postpone long periods of enjoyment of the money by putting it into savings. And then right now, because of the massive debt issuance that had taken place from the past, any kind of profit that is made from it needs to be turned back into either reinvesting back into doing the exact same thing again, right? Or you go to pay off your debts. But there is no advancement into the economy. However, if you allow the debts to continue to increase and you get a return on your capital investment, well, then you have a economy that's kind of growing, right? The GDP keeps up, stuff like that. It's the cold, sad truth. All right. I'm too old to understand Bitcoin. I'm old school, like to hold metal. Yeah. Well, if I were you, I know it's like probably not something that, I'm not, and this isn't financial advice. What this is advice for just gaining the experience to understand in educational purposes. Is I would start a Coinbase account, open up a Coinbase account, and buy like $10 worth of Bitcoin. Just simply buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. Just figure out how it works. It's pretty simple, right? It's literally like an app. It's nothing, there's nothing to it. And buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. Once you have some Bitcoin, you have a little tiny bit of skin in the game, right? You're going to pay a little bit more attention to it, and you're going to start seeing things that are going to be a little different in your life, and it will be just as simple as that. Now, it is a third-party custodian that's holding your Bitcoin, but whatever, right? It's still yours, and it's, and in that sense, you will have a better understanding of what it is that's happening. And besides, if it goes up to $400 million an ounce, you're going to be quite pleased that you bought $10 worth. So I suggest that to anybody, to own at least a little bit so that you have some skin in the game. That's the reason why I buy all the stuff. That's why I got into treasury stocks, ETFs. I even own a little bit of silver ETF. I know, right, guys? I own some paper silver. I do, right? Not much, but I bought $10 worth because I wanted a little piece of it, because you have a better understanding if you actually have it, right? So, all that stuff. I buy into everything. And there's nothing like that I won't attempt to get a little piece of. I don't talk about XRP. I own a little bit. I don't own much XRP, but I do own it, And people want me to defend it and talk about it and explain it, and I'm like, no, I don't believe in XRP. I think it's smoke and mirrors. I don't think there's anything. I don't believe in any kind of benefit that would come from it other than what it is that the dollar is doing today. Right? You can't replace the dollar with it, right? You can only do transactions, and that's fine, but everything at the end of the day is settled in dollars. And that's ultimately what it's going to come down to, right? Dollar transactions is it. No other transactions. Now, if you want that to be different, if you want anything to be replaced or to replace the dollar, there is a step in which that you have to go through. There's steps. One, you have to provide something that is going to be of equal trade. 1-to-1. Here's one, put it together. You don't matter which way you go with it. They look exactly, not look, they trade exactly the same. Everybody knows there is no difference between the two when you go to the store. If you have this one or this one, they're going to buy the same thing, right? That's the key to it. It has to have something like that. Otherwise, it's going to be a competition, and Gresham's law is going to be in effect, and it's going to be very difficult to try and issue that new currency or, try to provide the world without having one of them getting hoarded away. So it has to be traded 1-to-1. very much like what stable coins are trying to do. Now, you can have a central bank digital currency that says we are trading 1-to-1 with the dollar, right? And that would be a form of it. Or you could have like the stable coin that's tokenizing, that's saying we are trading 1-to-1 for it. There is no difference between those, not when it comes to the economy, right? They are the same thing. So whether it's central bank digital currency, whether it's stable coin, doesn't matter, right? Even if it XRP, right? XRP is not going to replace the dollar, right? It can't do what the dollar is doing. Nobody trusts XRP. Nobody knows to use XRP, right? Now, if XRP wants to carry the dollar somewhere, that's fine. It's trading like a stablecoin does, right? But that's what it would have to do because everybody's going to settle in dollars. Now, again, like I don't care what it is that we talk about as far as gold and tokening and Bitcoin and Lightning Network and all the other stuff that goes along with it. If you have a limited supply, all right, if you have a limited supply, you are going to have the industrious people hoard it. And it's going to deprive everybody else of doing transactions, and the economy will slow and fail. All right, it will slow down and fail. The only way to keep it constantly not failing is to do exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing, which is separating the rich from the poor. So if you're not getting into property, to be one of the property owners, if you are not following Lumberjack Landlord and Dion and Mike Zuber, if you are not following Jason Hartman, if you're not following these guys who are trying to help you to know exactly what it is that it needs to happen in order for you to get in this house, and if you're just simply telling them they're wrong, then go find someplace else that's going to make you rich. I can't find anybody else who's going to explain to you the steps that you need to go through to absolutely get you into, not guarantee, but get you into the capabilities of being wealthy, like actually wealthy. I don't know anybody else who's doing it. And I've been, like, believe me, I have looked around, right? And I have met a lot of people. And I have been traveling to a lot of different, I've done 3 different types of conferences, right? I've met some of the coolest people in the world. And this is where I'm like, this is the only advice I can give you. Like, as if there was any investment advice at all outside of, be sure and go to the closest person you know and tell them how much you appreciate and love them, then you should definitely listen to these guys because they're explaining it. Like this is, and it's not easy. You have to work at it. It's like there is work that is involved. It's like showing up at a job. Like people are like, no, man, they live like this life that is just super easy, money flowing, just capabilities. No, that's not right. That is absolutely not right. And here's one of the reasons, another reason why it's also difficult for me to get properties is because I also see all the bad things that happens to landlords. And Matthew's willing to show them on his Instagram. I've seen them. The way the tenants will leave properties and stuff. But I've heard some of the traumatic stories that a lot of landlords have gone through when it comes to the way the tenants have treated their properties. And some of the experiences of just trying to get paid and, having to evict and all the other stuff that goes with it. There's not some great stories. There's work involved with it, but the reward comes from it, right? I mean, you actually get an independent life, one where you get to, spend time with your family, where you get to go and travel, where you get to go and do these things. Why wouldn't you want to try to do something like that? I don't know. I mean, like I myself, I ask that question all the time. Like, here it is. These guys are like, dude, like, let's do it, man. Let's go. And I'm not denying it. Like, I mean, I'm just using a bunch of excuses and fear to keep myself limited. I mean, Jesus. All right. They say you shouldn't take advice from people that aren't in position of what you want to be, but this guy is cool. Hey, New York Outcast, I thought about that. Let me ask you, if you knew a guy who was absolutely broke on his ass and didn't have anything going for him, didn't have anything like, as far as like, options and possibilities going into the future, I would totally agree with that. But then if you met a guy who was in that position, but then got himself out of debt, built himself up a giant YouTube channel, was able to get himself into a house, started building himself up in a short amount of time seems to be a fairly significant stock portfolio, made connections with made networking connections with guys who are of the absolute highest caliber and know high levels of investment strategies and capabilities, you You wouldn't want to hang out with that guy either? Like, I mean, he's kind of stepping his way up in there from a pretty bad point. I mean, I know I'm not doing it in rocket speed, right? But I'm also enjoying my life and my family and being here in my little quiet community and going to baseball games and, just chilling out. Like, I pay my bills. Like, what else do I want? Like, if I don't, do I really want $400 million? Well, yeah, Bitcoin goes to $400 million. That'd be rad, right? But I pay my bills on time. That's cool. Well, you know how cool that is? I never had that in my life. Yeah, I was always behind on bills and debt and just like, figuring out how I was going to get to work because my cars were broken down and stuff like that. I don't live that life anymore. And I'm not trying to defend, what it is that, that I've like doing or where I'm at now, because I'm pretty proud of where it is that I've gotten to. Yeah. And I think other people are recognizing that, guys like George Gammon and Mike Zuber and, Patrick, when he invited me to the Silver Symposium, and, like all these guys, like they recognize something in there, These people always try to give me diet advice, and I'm just like, UE has earned my respect. Well, thank you, Janelle. Very few people want to be told how to succeed. Bobby, I don't know how to succeed, right? I don't know what that is. Like, people look at me and they're like, dude, man, you're so successful. And I'm like, I am? When did that happen, man? Because it doesn't feel like I've succeeded yet. Like, I feels like I'm getting there. I'm doing the things. Like, I don't know if I'm doing them right, but I'm trying here, right? But other people look at me like, dude, you're so successful at what you've done. And I'm like, what? Really? Yeah, it was just like, I feel like I'm getting there, but I don't know if I'm necessarily there. And anyway. If Bitcoin went to 400 million, the US dollar will have failed. No. Well, if it's $400 million and the dollar if the dollar had failed, then it wouldn't be $400 million because there wouldn't be no dollar. Right? There's only 19 million Bitcoin. There's only 19 million Bitcoin. I don't know, like if you were to even go into the idea of how much dollars exist just in contracts that get used as dollars. See, like if a contract is being used as dollars, that's a dollar. Because it's a demand for dollar that is in existence and being used as if it's a dollar that was generated completely outside of the United States without any involvement with the central bank or corporations or the government or anything like that. These things are being created and being used as if that dollar was created, right? And so you think about all the dollars that exist out there, not only in reality from the Federal Reserve printing money and creating digital reserves on banks. You think about all that, but then you think about all the contracts coming out of the Treasury Department, right? All the bonds, right? That's being used as cash. Those are dollars. Then you think about all the dollars that were created outside of the United States. And $400 million of Bitcoin is pretty insignificant, even at this point. Like, without a dollar failure, I mean, I could see that easily taking place. There's just not that much Bitcoin out there. And there's a whole lot of dollar-denominated debt. I could sit and listen to this guy for hours. People do, bro. I mean, we got 381 people watching right now. It's an hour and 58 minutes into it. 267 likes. Thank you, everybody, for hitting that like button. When you hit the thumbs up, the algorithm picks up the video. It spins it around for more people to join in. And these conversations are always so much better when there's more people joining in on the chat. $37 in super chats. Thank you so much for all the super chats. You guys are always so generous and donating to the Uneducated Economist while we're doing these live streams. I really appreciate that. And I know the family really does too, because it's changed our lives, all this stuff has. I don't want to be around when the tattooed nose ring wearing people who never got a skill come looking for a handout. Yeah, Bobby. I hear you. What would you tell someone who's mega sidelined? Like as far as in real estate? What I would do is I would go and follow Matthew, Mike Zuber, Dion, Millennial Mike. I would go and follow these guys who are in the game doing it right now. Listen to what they are saying. They have systems and ways of doing this so that you are going to be positioning yourself in the most realistic fashion for being profitable, right? This is what they're doing. Like they've done it so much, right? That they have now like formulated a system that you have to learn. Like it's not something that you're going to be like, like you can go and take the courses, take the lessons, take the advice and stuff like that, and you can go and say, okay, I got all the information, I can memorize it, and I can now regurgitate it back out to them. But unless you're actually doing something with it, if you're not participating, then it doesn't matter. Taking this information in and then knowing it and doing something with it is the most important part of it. So like if you're sidelined with it, right, follow these guys. They're going to show you how it is that you can look at the property, right, figure out how much you're going to be putting down, how much the interest payments are going to be, the rent for your area, like, I'm sorry, I just reconnected here. And at the end of that, it's going to tell you, give you a check mark of saying yes or no, right, on to buy this property. And that's literally like, it almost takes like all the guesswork out of it. Right now, there is other parts and aspects to it that you might have skills and things that you can do to try and, make it different. But, you got to go to the people who are doing it, right? Who are making those things happen. I actually think feeding and housing the population would not be that expensive if government got out of the way. Oh, I kind of agree with that, but here's the problem, Bobby, is that the government got in the way by actually being the ones going into debt, issuing out treasuries, severing the gold standard, and allowing the new money to continue to pour into the system. And by doing that, it separates the rich from the poor. Now, really, at that point, when that was taking place, the devastating experience that was going to impact the economy should have taken place. Now, if it did, and we were, good, hard-working, dedicated Americans, we would have taken a fairly good hit from that. There would have been a good depressionary experience from it. We would have regathered ourselves, went back into production and savings, moving that, again, holding back on luxuries, because that's the damaging part, is that move into luxuries. But if we fall into that part where we can move back into production and savings again, be competitive, then yeah, things will work. But it's just like that's just the problem from it. It's just like that's the cycle. Once you have done that, you're gonna produce and save, move into luxuries, and then luxuries will start to create the problems. So there's no fixing it, right? And so like you might have a way of everybody having a house. But if you can imagine that house, so like you could probably like, okay, if everybody lived in a hut, everybody would have a house, right? So nobody's going to want to live in a little mud hut or a little stick built house. They, or a little, whatever it is, they want an actual home, like, a house, right? So everybody could have a house if they lived in a tent. And then now you got to start bringing quality to that little structure that people are going to live in, right? The higher the quality, the more move into luxuries, the separation from the rich and the poor began. Like there's literally no way of doing it. There's no way, right? You have to understand that. And then, I mean, if you can figure it out, that'd be cool, but you'd be the first person in history from everything that I've ever read. This is the way it goes down, right? It's literally industrious people producing and saving, moving their stuff into a higher standard of living, the rise in luxuries, moving in foreign production, moving out domestic manufacturing, and eventual turning off of the new money and everybody falling into collapse. It happens over and over and over and over and over again throughout history. And the only way you can prevent that from happening is being like the United States and being the debt issuer who can do ever amounts and increasing debt issuance, bringing the new money in. Because once the new money stops coming in, it's done. Right? Uh, easy is just that. Easy. Easy is not better. Better is better. What they want and what they can have will. How desperate they are they? All right. People don't even know fish come from the ocean. How can they not know that? All right. Bobby, Babbling, thank you. Inspired me to start my own YouTube channel. All right, on. All right. All assets in the world is 500 trillion, but you think market cap of crypto should be? I don't think anything. Right? I'm not okay. I'm not reading that dude's comments anymore. All right. George Gammon is my father. Trying to get me to say something so that you can record it. I see other people do that. They'll take like my recordings and like chop it up so I say like these really like I don't know, like these really messed up things. Like I don't know where this video came from. I saw it, like I think it was on Instagram or something like that, and somebody had taken one of my recordings, like one of my videos, and like busted it into like this. I don't know how the hell they created it, but it was like I was saying all kinds of stuff that I was not saying, you know. And I'm like, Jesus. And then, luckily, it hadn't had that many views, so I didn't promote it or anything like that. But I was just like, man, some people are just super creative and bored, you know. Okay. Thoughts on central bank digital currencies? I mean, other than at some point in the future, we are going to have a digital currency, we're going to have cashless society, and we will move into negative interest rates. But that's going to be a ways down the road. Whether it's a central bank digital currency or stable coin, it doesn't really make any difference, in my opinion. The track tracing, taxing, all the like, all that stuff, yeah, that'll come from it. They can control it in ways that would be like a central banker's just like dream. Spend money here, spend money in this amount of times. Don't spend money on these things. This is something that, like, a central banker would just love to have, as far as that goes. However, the way our monetary system is set up, in the way that it is now moving, unless the neutral interest rate continues to rise, there's going to come a point in which that there's going to be a downturn in the economy, and the Federal Reserve is going to try and stimulate by lowering the Fed funds rate. Now, they are going to do everything in their power to try and hold that off as long as they can to get that neutral interest rate to rise up as much as they can. And once they get that neutral interest rate to rise, they can actually bring that power back to the Fed funds rate. Because right now, moving Fed funds rate doesn't really stimulate the economy. Their communications about it does. But the actual impact of interest rate adjustments doesn't really work like it used to. However, if time goes on with elevated interest rates, they will get a lot of their ammo back. And at that point, then they can continue to carry on the system in the way that it exists today. However, if they cannot get the neutral interest rate to rise significantly, which I believe is going to be the case in the end, if they cannot do that, then what they are going to have to do is take interest rates into negative territory. And by going into negative territory, they're going to start impacting the financial markets with negative interest rates, which is then going to, in turn, put a negative interest rate on cash deposits, which people are then going to pull their cash out because at least it doesn't yield a negative interest rate. It yields zero, right? So people will start pulling their cash out of the banking system, which will then in turn make it very damaging and difficult for the cash or for the banking system to operate. So this was at this point, right? And this is what I believe about it. Whether they have a digital currency, like a central bank digital currency that is a new type of whole new digital ledger or something like brand new, never before seen program, or they're using something like stable coins, either way, they can pull the cash out of the system. If you can get the cash out of the system and have everybody using stable coins, they will be forced into the system, or central bank digital currency. They'll be forced into the system, and then cash can be then charged a deposit or a withdrawal. That then is matching the negative interest rate. So it's just as cumbersome to use cash. Stores would then charge you an extra amount. You would pay a fee for using cash because they're going to be paying a fee to deposit it. And then cash would be so cumbersome and nuisance that nobody would choose to use it and instead deposit that for the digital currency. They will then allow that digital currency, whether it's a stable coin or central bank digital currency or whatever, they will allow that to work for probably a generation before they start twisting the screws to the people, like with the draconian parts of it. But they will take negative territory. They will go into negative territory. And then, like I said, the government will have no other choice. Like, because the economy has allowed this sort of thing to take place, right? And this is the natural progression. Like, what else are you going to do? Either the monetary system fails, which is fine. We go back to the barter system, and that's not going to be fun at all. But, okay, whatever. Or there's some attempt to try and keep it going. Right? And this is the attempt to keep it going. Now, the reflections from this is that there's going to have to be ever-increasing amounts of control. And from this ever-increasing amounts of control comes the government's, intrusion into our lives. Now, this is all an economic event that is happening here. And we're allowing it, right? Because we're the ones who are demanding the ability to do transactions. We don't want to sit in depression. We don't want to sit in like a failed economy. We want the government to do something. And so this is it. This is what they're going to do, because as people in participating within the economy, this is what we're asking for. This is not Bidenomics either. This has nothing to do with Biden, right? Because I wouldn't know, because I've never listened to a single thing Biden has ever said in my entire life, right? Not one. Anybody else who's ever listened to something that Biden says knows more about Bidenomics than I do, okay? This is the truth of the matter. This is coming from all the economic research that I have ever done. This is coming from my true understanding and beliefs that is happening within the economy. This is not influenced by politics. This is not influenced by investments. This is not influenced by any of that stuff. This is all just pure in the hopes of understanding. That's it. Like, that was my whole goal of this. And it's one of the reasons why I even put up that link to an article that talks about how inflation expectation doesn't create inflation. If this is true, it breaks my argument. So I'm going to read this guy's argument, see how it is that he sees that no inflation expectation, or that inflation expectation doesn't create the inflation. I'm going to have to understand that, and I'm going to have to understand it fully if I'm going to try and break that argument. And that's going to be very difficult for me to understand through 27 pages of Fed speak. Which is going to be difficult, but I'm going to do it, because I don't believe this guy, but he has a really compelling argument going. That's why they think of us, Trump or Biden, two losers. I don't trust any of the politicians out there. I don't trust this political system. I don't trust the banking system. I don't trust any of that stuff. Like, I don't expect it to work for me, and I don't any of that stuff. My expectations of things going on out there are very low. Right? I don't have very high expectations. What I expect is to understand it so that I can position myself. And I don't really involve politics into it, because I think it has more to do with the economics. I think the economics, and then I look at what the politics are probably going to end up doing from it. And I can tell from a central bank digital currency that it would cause a lot of government intrusion into our lives for so many different reasons. And I can see it happening. And it's just like, it's not the government doing it, it's the economics part of it. If the economy does this, the government's going to end up reacting like that. They're reacting to us, to what we do. All right. You should only be able to own more than 5 homes if you have them built from scratch. This would help increase supply. Absolutely not. Dissident 112 would absolutely destroy the housing market. If you're only allowed to own 5 homes, it would create massive distortions within the markets. You would have no free market capabilities within it. You would have 100% government intrusion into our lives. It would be very difficult to find new homes being created. It would be, I think you would find a very limited amount of actual homes, and the ones that were going to get built would be just absolutely insanely priced. Like, if you could only own 5 homes and that was the one place that you absolutely, like, it's the one thing that is needed in order to live in, like as a home, then I think that would create an incredible limited amount of supply. And I know that's weird to think, but it really comes from the ability to build homes. Like, I want to be able to build as many homes as I want. And if I can build 150 homes and sell them all, then that's what I'm going to do. But if I'm only limited to 5, right, then what am I going to do? I'm not going to build homes. If there's no homes being built, then bam, all these houses go up in price. Then I would build 5 homes. You know, Trump would print too, but at least hopefully he can the pull the over regulation. I don't trust it. I don't trust anybody who says, no, I can come in here and I can, clear the swamp and make this system work for you. Liar. The system doesn't work for you. The system does not work for you. I do not care who you have as president. I don't care, right? The system cannot work for you. It's not that it's designed. It's not that way. New money comes in, separates the rich from the poor. If you do not have new money come in, you are going to have a collapse. There is no way that some savior is going to come in and make it right. It doesn't work like that, okay? The only thing you can do is try and keep the whole system flowing and going again. And somebody's coming in who's saying they can fix it, they're lying. They're absolutely lying. No doubt about it. There is no reversal to it. It only gets worse. The reversal to it is far too painful for anybody to experience. If you want it, just do it on your own. If you think you could fix it, then just do it on your own. You don't need to elect anybody. You don't need any of that stuff. All you have to do is take all your money, right? When you get your paycheck, you go and you buy the absolute necessities, nothing more than the absolute necessity in your life. If it is not nothing luxurious at all, I don't care what it is, right? You do not buy anything new. Everything is used. You fix everything, right? You repair it all. You take the money that you do have after buying the necessities, whatever you have, the little excess you have after that, and you pay off your debts. And that's it. You pay off debts until you have no more debts left. Then you take that extra money and you reinvest it back into savings and production again. And now we have to do this, all of us, individually, consciously, at the same time, to make this happen. Okay? There is no president that's going to come in and make that happen for you without a painful experience. All right? Think about that. Do you want a president to come in and do that to you? Do you know what that's going to look like? Can you imagine the socialistic behaviors of a president that would behave like that in order to fix the system? Free market capitalistic behaviors is by far the best way to live. And yes, it is separating the rich from the poor. It is the new money that is coming in. It is the Cantillon effect. There is no doubt about it. There is no leader that can come in and say that I can change the way that these economic forces operate. No, you're not. All right, you're lying. There's no doubt about it. You are lying. But if we know how that operates, then we can take advantage of the situation itself and then hopefully end up with 150 homes ourselves. Like, there's no reason why you can't do that, man. Like, you have to work hard at it. Me personally, I should be doing it. I admit that. I use excuses for why I'm not getting into real estate. I also have a life in which that I can pay my bills on time. I am building a bit of a savings. I am investing in stocks. I am doing things that is like progressing. And just because I haven't bought into 150 houses yet doesn't mean I don't want to. There will come a time in which that I'll probably be moving much more in that direction. At this time in my life, if you have what it is that you need, if you are paying your bills, if you are saving, why is it that you're even trying any harder than that? What do you go and spend time with your family, man? Right? That's what I'm telling myself. Go do that, right? What time is it? 2 hours and 18 minutes in. We're going to give it a few more minutes. We're going to call it quits. Alrighty, guys. I love the resulting flatulence that occurs afterwards. Good fun. Let's see here. God, where are my glasses? Here we go. Oh, the broken glasses. I was hoping wouldn't read that one. Oh, austerity. All right. Too much sugar in the cowboy caviar. A rice cooker and properly cooked rice makes a huge difference to in longevity. I like rice. Rich people need the spending people in debt. It's like, I mean, whether they need it or is that just what's occurring, right? I mean, is that what, I mean, like, I just have a hard time believing that a long, 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 long time ago, a guy is thinking, he's like, you know what? I'm going to create a system in which that I'm going to have a bunch of people be industrious. They're gonna really like work hard to create shops and manufacturing and factories and produce really good things. I'm gonna make that happen, and then I'm gonna manipulate that shit. like like okay, yeah, that's one way of looking at it, right? Or you could say that we naturally progressed into a situation because that's more likely what happened. Guys from the past have recognized these economic conditions many, many times. The goldsmiths knew that not everybody was going to come back for their gold. And they also saw that the claim tickets for their gold was being used for transactions. That right there was an economic event. That was the economy. That was happening there. That wasn't the goldsmith saying, hey, let's make this happen. This was the goldsmith looking at this saying, yeah, buddy, I'm going to take advantage of this situation, right? That's what's going, that's essentially the heart of it. People didn't have to use those claim tickets to do transactions. They were looking for the ability to do transactions easier. Think about that all the way back to that day. That is the exact same problem that the United States was facing when we severed ourselves from the gold standard. People wanted to use the dollar to do transactions, and their demand to do transactions was so prevalent within the economy that the demand for dollars was exceedingly far more than the demand for the gold at the time. When people realized there was too many dollars out there, they had to sever it, or else they were going to crash the system. It's the same story. You can tell this over and over and over again because this is the way the economy rolls. And it's not the decisions of men, it's the decisions of people who want to have the ability to do transactions. That's it. They want to take their carrots and convert it to whatever the hell they want. And that is where the problem begins, right? When it comes to having a currency. If they didn't want to do that, if they didn't that's that, if you really want to know the heart of the problem, that's it. Is that people want to be able to convert their carrots to whatever they want. In fact, that should be the title to a book, or at least a chapter of it. And if they didn't want that desire, if they didn't have that desire to convert those carrots to whatever the hell they wanted, then there would not be any of the problems that you are facing today. There would be a whole different set of problems of only having carrots to eat. And maybe something else that somebody would be willing to trade with you. And this is where the problem begins, right? So what do? We use gold. Gold will be the common exchange for all this stuff. Everybody can relate to that. They know how much gold, they can see it. It's intrinsic. It's, valuable. It's, fungible. It's everything that everybody would want for a currency. It's, everlasting. And then it's cumbersome. But what isn't cumbersome is paper. And if gold sits in a vault, paper goes into circulation, making transactions start to happen, and you can print up papers and make more transactions start to take place, and more people are doing transactions, and more carrots are being made, and more people are, producing stuff in order to be involved in the economy that has a lot of transaction capability to it. Then people are going to be really excited about that until one day they try to take all that paper and they go back and get the gold, and the goldsmith's like, oh, I'm sorry, no, we can't do that. See, you guys wanted to be able to do all those transactions, and well, we kind of took advantage of that situation, right? So, no, no, we're not going to do that. Right? Well, yeah, that sucks, right? I mean, that sucks to be in that sort of position. Okay, so you're not going to do that. Well, you're going to lend out money? Oh, yeah, we'll lend out money. Okay, well, I'm going to lend out money to something and use it to buy something that's going to pay me not only a principal payment, but it's also going to make the interest payment on that loan. And they say, yeah, I don't care what you do with it. Yeah, that's your money, right? If you want to borrow it, as long as I get my payment, I don't care what you do with it. And I'll be like, okay, give me that money. See all you guys on the high side, man. I'm out of here. And I'm going to go and buy real estate investment properties, return on investment properties, whatever. I'm just going to go out there and buy things that start paying me. And that's what I would do with it. And if I was the first one to participate in that, then I'm the first one who's participating in a new system. And if the whole thing crashes, I get why, right? But I am not going to sit here and go like, oh no, it shouldn't happen. I'm not, I'm going to fight that system and sit down here on the bottom and pretend like it ain't working. No, like I'm going to take advantage of that situation, right? I mean, if you could see it, why wouldn't you? All right. Gold is not any more cumbersome than paper, really. It is the ledgers across the world that are where credit comes in. Gold is cumbersome. It is cumbersome, right? You can do a dollar transaction with anybody in the world. It can go through the networking channels of the Federal Reserve. Gold, if I wanted to send it to somebody who's in New York, I have to put trust in it. I have to put time and I have to put payment. There's security, there's insurance, there's all kinds of issues that come from that. It is very cumbersome. I could send somebody, I got to pick up my Venmo right now and send somebody money all across anywhere in the world practically, And so, it's very cumbersome. And every minute of it costs. It costs to store it, costs money to send it, it costs money to sell it, costs money to buy it, Don't pay off your debt. Every little extra bit of money that you get put into reinvesting into properties. Deplorable kulak. I agree with that so long as the interest payment on your debt is low, right? If you have a high interest on your debt, then you have to take out an investment that has a return that is that much higher than the interest on your debt. So let's say you have a 10% debt interest, whatever, $1,000 at 10%, right? You would have to take $1,000 and invest it into something that earns like 15% in order to get a 5% return, right? Not that great. Like here, you're working real hard to get a 15% return, but you're only actually getting 5% because you're putting 10% on a debt. So what I'm saying is that there's no better return on your capital investment than to pay off the debt itself, because now you can actually get a full return on your money once you move back into investment payments again. You have to pay off your debts first. There's no point investing in anything at all if you have an interest payment or a high interest payment loan, like credit card or something like that. Zero reason to invest. In my opinion, I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not giving investment advice. This is my personal opinion. Zero, right? Into of money going into the market when you have a high interest debt. It should be all of it going into your debt and paying that off. And then once that's done, then move into immediately whatever payments have been going into debt should not be moved into luxuries or enjoyment or good times or anything like that. It should be immediately moved over and moved into investments. If you could make a course that becomes mandatory in schools across the country, what impact do you think you could have, UE, for students from 16 to 18 years old? I think that if it was something, thank you very much, Inspector Music, like the name. I feel that if I was to really teach a course to kids to understand how this economy works in this fashion from the monetary policy strategies and from the economic theories that I have learned, I think that the system would fail. I think it would fail because the people would simply not conduct themselves in a way that would allow it to continue to work. And that's really what I honestly believe. Now, if people really understood it to that level, then they would also understand in a way that would probably have a monetary system still working, right? But knowing that there is so many other ways of being able to conduct themselves that doesn't need to participate in that monetary system, that it would make that whole thing less relevant. See, the only reason why we even have a monetary system is because people wanted to borrow money. That's it. Right? Now, if we didn't have this government entity thing out here that was creating a way of being able to borrow money, then we would have to go to somebody who has gold and say, hey man, can I borrow some money? You have to go to your rich uncle, right? Instead, if you don't have a rich uncle, then you have to go to the financial system in order to get your idea. You have an idea that you want to, create a product. You want to start a pizza shop. You want to do something, but you don't know anybody who can loan you the money, right? You can't find it anywhere in private. So you go to the financial systems out there and you go to the banks and, you figure out if you can get this business loan. And that's something that is pretty damn cool to have if you have a really good idea. Then you can take that loan, put it back into your business, start that business up or advance it or make it better, and have that now paying back that loan and paying you, and now everybody's happy with this, right? This is the enjoyment of the having a financial system that has you access to liquidity, and it also is what's given everybody the ability to do the transactions to begin with. Everybody's free flowing, everybody's happy, everybody's enjoying this stuff, and yes, the separation from the rich and the poor begins, and it's very evil looking to a lot of people, and they don't like that part of it, but they like everything else about it, right? Unfortunate consequence of this, right? And now that you know it, just go be part of that. I mean, it's not like you're locked out. It feels locked out, but you're not. It's hard work, right? It's dedication. It's a lot of like anxiety and fear and all that other stuff. You think those guys just got up there and they were like, man, that's the easiest thing I've ever done in my entire life was make $100 million. Woo! No problems. It's like skating on ice, man. $100 million, no problem. Okay? Not a single one of them. They talk about how they almost lost everything and how they did lose everything at one point. How the uncertainties of life and all the other stuff. They faced a lot of things too getting there. It wasn't like it was an easy ride. Except freedom requires a constitution. No, the Constitution exists. What it requires is a people to be constitutional. And the people are the responsible ones, not the government. Right? The government isn't responsible for the Constitution. It's us individually, as an individual person, saying, no, you can't behave this way. I have a constitutional right. I vote for constitutional people. I don't vote and I don't participate in people who are not being constitutional. And I don't participate, in governments that, are acting unconstitutional. It's very difficult. Most people don't do it. Like if you really, 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 really wanted to be a constitutional person, you would get out of the financial system 100% altogether. You wouldn't pay taxes. You would be 100% in the precious metals, and you would have a very hard life, right? Because all the government people out there don't behave constitutionally. You can't match that. You can only take your constitutional rights. You can only take those back in the way that you feel is most appropriate for you. And the more you dig into it and the more deeper you go, the more hard work you have to do it. And I've done, a lot of research on it, and I realized, dang, there is a lot to know when it comes to living like a sovereign individual free from government. It is not easy, right? I'd rather try and make $100 million and be participating in this crazy ass system because nobody else wants to be constitutional, right? And I'll stand up for my own constitutional rights when I see them infringed upon. I mean, memorize the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Once a vassal, always a vassal. I'm not reading demonic stuff. Okay. Henry was the guy that invented the Clark bar. Alrighty, guys. We're 2.5 hours into it. I think we've gone long enough. 300 18 people watching. That's pretty cool. 314 thumbs up. You guys made it through it. Now 327 now. I really appreciate everybody hanging out for the live stream. We did quite a bit of talking about inflation expectations, and what it is that's going on with monetary policies and how to conduct ourselves. You know, I love having these conversations. I love coming out here and kind of sharing some ideas about what it is that's going on, bringing up these topics and breaking them down, trying to understand, like, you know, what it is that is creating some of the situations that we are experiencing. A lot of times we want to put, like, you know, blame, and there's plenty of blame to go around, but oftentimes if we just look deep enough into the history of things, we can find that there's economic forces that are at play that are just replaying themselves over and over again, and we can find evidence of that happening when we do this research and discussions. So, all right, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.